Hey, what's happening, everybody? Welcome to the program. It's Jeff Gerstmann in this week hosting The Jeff Gerstmann Show. Episode number 51 here. We are in the late, we're the throes, the end of May. It might as well be June. Video games are right around the corner. You've just got to make it another, 10 days or so. And then you got to decide if you're going to, what are you going to devote your life to? Is it Street Fighter 6 or is it Diablo 4? That's it. Everything else, just throw it in the garbage. The other games you were playing, whatever. Who cares? That's it. If you don't like one of those two games, then pack it in. Go get back into tabletop games, nerd. We're over here joining PMCs and... Well, that's pretty much it. I don't know. We're over here joining PMCs. That's what all the cool kids are doing these days. They're like, I want to be in the military, but all these rules. Hi everyone, it's May 23rd. We're here. And yeah, it is very close here. We're kind of right around the corner. I guess, are we a week away from the start of Diablo, like early access for people who paid them more money? Is it the 30th for that, or was it the 1st? I don't remember the actual. I think it might be actually the 1st. And then that night, 9 p.m. around here, but midnight some other parts of the world, I guess, depending on what platform you're going with or something. Probably it's usually how that works out. Is Street Fighter will be out. Street Fighter. They made a 6th Street Fighter. Back in my day, we couldn't get a 3rd Street Fighter, let alone a 6th. Can you believe it? That was it's funny, people talk about Half-Life and all the, Valve can't count to 3. But like those were Street Fighter jokes originally. Much like the New Kids on the Block stomach pumping jokes used to be Rod Stewart jokes. The Half-Life 3 jokes used to be Street Fighter 2 jokes. And then Street Fighter 3 came out and it was I don't know, I guess I don't know, that was always my perspective on it, was that I remember getting my first look at Street Fighter 3 and playing it for a good long time, most of a day, really. Like me and I believe it was Ryan McDonald. We went and played it for an entire afternoon, basically. And I think we just left just going like, man, it's not really, we don't like this. I don't like it. I don't like the characters in this. And kind of came away from it just going like, this is okay, but not. I think when you think about, and that's the danger. And so Valve is smart. At the end of the day, Valve is smart, right? Because everyone got so impossibly worked up about the very concept of Street Fighter 3. And I'm talking base level Street Fighter 3. I'm not talking Third Strike. I think they found their way by the end of that run. I'm talking like when Street Fighter 3 came out. And they were like, here's the new main guy. It's Alex. And you're like, no. No, it isn't. And you saw all the stuff about like, oh, the frames of animation when Ryu throws this fireball, it's gonna fucking blow you away, and everything, and the expectations were so out of control for the release of Street Fighter 3 that I don't think there was a world in which they could have been met. Think about it, because there had been 5 different, 6, 5 at the time, I guess, 5 different releases of Street Fighter 2. 2 Champion Edition, Hyper Fighting, Super, and Super Turbo. And by the time Super came out, like Super is a cool game and all, but the announcer change and all that other stuff, I remember being like a little kind of nonplussed with Super when it came out also. Because there was so much other stuff happening. You're just like, well, I'm just going to go play more Samurai Showdown 2. I'm just going to keep playing that. I'm going to, like, what's King of Fighters like this year? Like, it just felt like the market had widened beyond just Street Fighter and Mortal Kombat, and obviously, at this point, I guess we would have been coming up around, you would have had Tekken out by this point, Virtua Fighter, of course, like there was a lot of choice in the fighting game market, and so Street Fighter 3 kind of didn't have to be this massive hit, but then also it kind of wasn't, and It just kind of, I don't know. I remember going and playing it and not really feeling like, let's go play more of that. It was just like, okay. Alpha, however, I don't know. I got deep into the Alpha games, of course, because those are just fantastic games. And in some ways, Alpha almost felt like, oh, well, Street Fighter 3 can't possibly meet expectations, but the stakes are a lot lower for a game like Alpha. And I don't know, Alpha's just hit it out of the park. It's such a good Alpha 2, 02 Alpha, the weird like kind of last update for Street Fighter Alpha 2 in Japan, I guess. Like some of the, I have a 02 Alpha arcade board out in the garage. Battery was still good last time I looked at it, but you know how those things go. And so, I don't know, like to be on the precipice of Street Fighter 6. After 5, I think, like a lot of, I think people's reaction to 5 is actually not that dissimilar to the Street Fighter 3 trilogy, right? Where when that game came out, it was like, okay, this is really cool. And then, I don't know, I'm not the only one to fall off that game early, but it seems like, over the course of its run, it definitely, found its audience, much the same way that Street Fighter 3 did, obviously. People now look back at Street Fighter 3 as this, as an incredible game. And I think by the time they got to Third Strike, I think they got there, they got there for sure. There's still characters on that roster that I'm just not interested in. It was just like, here's a bunch of goofy weirdos. Like, take those assholes and put them into a Guilty Gear game with Bedman. Do you think, has anyone, I was thinking this yesterday, can we get, did anyone, are there AMVs or just, I want Bedman combo videos with Redman songs over them. I don't know why. I mean, I know why, but sorry, yes, Bedman? Do you know who I'm talking about? And so I don't know, it's a little funny now to get to Street Fighter 6 and now they are going to try to put a new main character in place again. With Luke, and try to have Luke be the cover guy for Street Fighter 6, and whatever role he plays in story mode or whatever. And yes, I have to say, it's working 100%. Everyone loves Luke. If you don't love Luke, you still feel strongly about Luke, which is more than I think most people could say about Alex, who was just kind of a dude. Laser Ghost Robot says Luke has a collection of pre-banned Four Loko. Yeah, he's got a lab set up. He knows that. No, he doesn't. He's an idiot. He knows a guy who is manufacturing illegal Four Lokos. And And he doesn't drink them himself. No. He is driving around in front of the high school at 2:45 with a trunk full of them, looking to get paid. Luke is just trying to get his. Luke is just trying to make money. Just let me have a little fun. That's Luke. That's all. That's all Luke wants to do, is have a little fun. He wants to go beast mode, baby. And yes, and Jamie is buying all of the illegal Four Logos. This is the actual. Sorry, I didn't mean to break embargo, but the actual story of the Street Fighter 6 story mode is that's why those two characters are the lead faces of the game right now, because it is a whole ring of people selling bootleg Four Locos into the marketplace. They're just filling a need as far as I'm concerned. And yes, Luke is on his gorilla grind set for sure, and he's just out there trying to get his. He just wants to go beast mode, baby. Don't we all? I'm very excited about the release of Street Fighter 6. They ran that beta over the weekend, so hopefully some folks got some more multiplayer in on that with some of those characters. I started seeing the Scrub Quotes social media account with a lot of screenshots of the Street Fighter 6 chat window of people being absolute garbage people to each other, and I was like, yes, a fighting game. Very exciting. So that's coming soon. We'll of course have a lot more to say about Street Fighter 6 in the relatively near future. But gosh, what else is going on? My computer was haunted. I was playing a video game last night. And as I was shutting down the video game to go to bed, my computer did some stuff that was straight up haunted. And here's what happened. My daughter likes to. This is a pretty recent development. She wants to sit in my chair here, and she wants to sit at the keyboard. And she says, "I've got important work to do." And then she just goes blah, 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 and smashes all the keys. So I opened up a copy of Notepad for her to type into. And yesterday she was asking me like how to spell her friends' names and stuff like that, and she was pecking out the keys and spelling all the names. It was a lot of fun. But because she just mashes the keyboard, you kind of never know what's going to happen. So when I hear a bunch of Windows noises, I know I need to come back in here and look and go, "Oh, you have hit the Windows key, and now you are you are typing into Discord now. That's okay. That's good. You've somehow brought up Windows Update. Fantastic." But I thought that was the end of it. I was like, "Oh, well, okay." And so I'm currently in a Discord for an unreleased video game. It's stuff it happens sometimes with multiplayer games. If you need to set up a session or whatever, that's kind of a newish thing with the rise of Discord. Is they'll be like, "Hey, join the Discord for this," and I almost never. In fact, this may be actually the first one of those I have ever joined. And of course, that was the server that was up when she started mashing on the keys. So she sent some garbage over to one of these servers, and I had to delete that real quick. But I thought that was the end of it. So last night I'm playing a video game. I close out the video game, getting ready to go to bed. It's quiet time. And I guess I must have pressed the escape key. I don't know what I pushed. I don't know which key I pushed. But I pushed a key, and the entire computer started going berserk. The Discord window popped up a bunch of keyboard shortcut menus that appeared to have DDR icons on them, and I've never seen that before. The computer, it was making a noise I have never heard before. Every window, it was just since I was trying to click around and tab to other windows, every time I changed windows, some other chaotic thing happened. The task launcher, the alt tab or I guess it's Windows Space on Windows. It's similar to the thing that Macs have. They added to Windows. They're like, what if we did this too? That popped up, and a bunch of garbage characters started showing up in that. And the noise it was making was, it was not like it didn't sound like a truncated Windows sound effect. It was like, it was just going like, and so I'm freaking out, going like, this is a virus, right? What is happening here? So I shut the computer down. I had to like sit there and just like start mashing Alt F4 until I could turn the computer off. And like, I'm freaking out, and I'm like, holy shit, what just happened? I don't, okay. So I'm like, okay, I think I might know what this is, but I need to turn the computer back on. And so I turn the computer back on and log back into Windows, and everything is fine. And then as I go to start typing again, I run the like malicious, the Windows, the MRT, the Windows malicious software removal tool. I run that. I pop open a virus scanner and start scanning for that. As I'm doing that, it all starts happening again. And at this point, I'm like, okay, I think I know what this is. I get it to, it finally stops. So what I did is I opened up a notepad window and let it just spew what it was doing into that. And I was like, oh, that's exactly what my daughter was typing. This keyboard I have has a macro setting on it. And you can move keys around. You can swap keys to different positions. You can record a bunch of keystrokes into one position. And so what she had somehow done while mashing on the keys is she had replaced the escape key, the H key, and the right space bar. I have 2 space bars because it's a split keyboard, and with this software, you can actually map them separately. She had mapped her mashing on the keys to those 3 keys. I don't ever use the right space bar. I use the left space bar. And so I opened up the keyboard software and started looking at it. And I was like, okay, all right. Okay. Not in fact a virus. I know exactly what has happened here. And my mind, well, no, my mind was not at ease, actually. Like, I was like heated. I was like, oh shit. Like my heart rate was elevated. I was like I was like freaking the hell out. And I was like, okay, did she, at first I was like, did she mash on the keyboard so hard that it broke something? I was looking for stuck keys. I was looking, is the joystick, is the controller cable pushing down a key on the thing? What's, and so I even when I knew that it was something related to what she was doing, I didn't realize that it was the macro stuff. So I went in and cleared all my keyboard profiles to get all that stuff out of there. And I think everything is fine now. You say unplugging the keyboard is a good first step. Not on this one. This one has a built-in kind of like you mount it like a USB drive, and your macros get recorded there, so they are not destroyed when the keyboard is unplugged. So unplugging the keyboard would not have actually done anything. So yeah. So that was I don't know what to do about that in the future, because she is now very much hooked on typing. I don't know. Maybe I can get my laptop out. The problem with kids is that they don't want a thing that's like the thing that you're using. They want the thing that you're using. Like, I have a burner phone. And sometimes my son will be trying to grab the phone. My daughter used to do this as well. She doesn't do it as much. And for a while I could just hand him the Android phone that I have that I only use for streaming from the car or whatever. It's like, here. And he would look at that for a while. Now, no. He's like, no. And I have other remotes that, because he likes to play this game where he gets the remote control and he turns off the TV. And then he's sad about the TV being off, and he hands it back to me so that I turn it all back on and I relaunch Plex. And then I'm like, okay, here's this. Okay. Yeah. Here's Blue's Clues, whatever. And then he immediately wants the remote back. so that he can turn it off again, so that he can hand it back to me. So yeah, they don't want the fake stuff anymore. They want the real thing. And I honestly, I can't blame them. It's kind of fun that they're smart enough to know that, like, that, stop handing me that fake ass shit. This one doesn't turn the TV off, Dad. And I'm like, okay. Boy, oh boy. So yeah, that's been that's been kind of an action-packed corner of things lately with the kids and so on and so forth. And so my wife and I are doing the only thing that makes any sense, and we're gonna have another one. So please look forward to more. Please look forward to the, I don't know what the please look forward to more information. Yeah. If you've been maybe noticing that the schedule's been a little weird, and my wife, I've been like, oh, I've had to go for an appointment and all this other stuff. So yeah, we have a third on the way in October. Yeah, this is, and this was pretty much the plan for a good long time here. I think it's maybe happening ever so slightly faster than, yeah, we're really, they're by the time we're done here, and everything, knock on wood, blah blah blah, like they will each be about 2 years apart, which is right about how we wanted to do it. So yeah, we're gonna have another baby. We already got a baby. I mean, well, I don't know. He's a toddler now. He walks around. He puts his shoes on and stumbles around, and he climbs up the slide. He's trying to go head first down the slide at the park all the time now. It's crazy. He is a daredevil in a way that my daughter is not. Whereas she would go down the slide, and then I don't know, something happened, and now she is scared of the big slide at the park. She just started going down the small slide again all by herself and enjoying that. So I think, whatever, it'll all work out in the end. But there was a while there that she was fearless on the slide, and then so she like grew up just enough to be like, "Yo, I don't know." And then now she's slowly getting past that, I guess. So yeah. So I need to move everything out to the garage and do all yes. So I need to get everything all set up out in the garage and everything, because yeah, we're gonna be filling every bedroom in this place again. So yeah, I don't know. That's yeah, we we're still, there's obviously we had to go get anatomy scans and everything, and so we've seen all these pictures of this kid and all the fingers, and like the spine looks good. Like that's a big deal with when you are building babies. One of the things the doctors want to make sure about, and they want to make sure about, is like the spine is fully developed. And you're like, great, awesome, yeah, that's a big deal, yeah. I joke, but like now that we've been through this a couple of times already, that yes, I understand why the spine stuff happens and everything else, but it is a lot of conversations about stuff like that, like look at the brain stem, look at the and doing all these ultrasounds and showing you like, look at, okay, this leg is up here, this is over here, and we have not thought of a name yet. Names are hard. Before we had any kids, we had 2 names picked out, 1 boy, 1 girl. And we ended up using the girl name on my daughter. And then when it came time for us to have a boy, we did not use the boy name. We decided we didn't like the boy name anymore. And so we went with something else. And yeah, I don't know. It's names are just conceptually, names are weird. Like you got to name it. I mean, whatever. If a kid grows up and really, really hates their name, I mean, there is a legal process to change it. That's I keep that in the back of my mind. That that I'm like, hey, if we really screw this up, they can fix it later. if they really don't like it. Yeah, so yes, we'll have Hunter, and then we'll have Trish and Lita. That's right. I mean, that's how this goes, right? Yeah. Could you imagine? Someone's done that. Someone's certainly done that. Anyway, we got these last week in the mail, and they look like freaking disasters. This is the type of low rent energy drink that I'm talking about. The can design, like this, it just, and then over here, it's a can of Spike, the original hardcore energy. And then just over here, they like, as they designed the can, they were just like, I don't know, we wrote the word hardcore over here again, and we put it's a registered trademark. And then over here, like, get spiked, and it's got a 800 number on it, written in just generic ass fonts and everything. Like, there's, this was designed by people who needed to get it out on the market as soon as possible. They put all of their time into the logo itself, which to me just looks like, if you told me this was a failed logo or an old logo for Spike TV, I would believe you 100%. I would be like, oh yeah, I remember when they used that logo. Maybe they did. Is this just an old Spike TV logo that they have stolen? Anything's possible. This one has 350 milligrams of caffeine, which is the highest number I've seen since we've started building this list. Most of them top out at 300. And most of them these days are more like 200. So they have gone above and beyond here. 1,000 mcg vitamin B12 and 800 milligrams of beta alanine. But yeah, I don't think I've ever seen a 350 before. And so I'm interested in this for a lot of reasons. So why don't we crack it open and see what's going on? We have a case of this stuff, but I don't know if I need a case of this stuff. Let's find out. That smells like, what fruit is that? What fruit is that? That's it's one of the tropical, if you told me this was like a, I don't know, like a mango, it's peach. It's like a peachy, mango-y. This smells like canned cling peach juice. It appears to be completely clear as it collects on the top of the can. Well, let's find out. Ah. It tastes backwards. And it tastes like tartar sauce? No, it tastes, there's like a, this man, I have to keep drinking this. It does not taste like it smells. There's a bit of a fruity flavor on the end of it, which is weird. Yeah, so it's like it's like the, have you ever taken an equalizer and just taken the middle bands and just lowered them all the way down, and then like the music sounds like you just scooped a big hole in it, and it's like it's got some bass and some treble, but where the rest of the song is supposed to be is just gone. This tastes like that. This tastes like you take a sip of it and you're like, there's a hole in this beverage where the flavor is supposed to be. Um, and then on the end of it is that kind of fruity peach-esque flavor kind of comes out and gets you. It's not good, but it's not, I don't know. It's generally inoffensive. It's just kind of like not, it's not a great tasting drink. I was expecting more. I was expecting either like it's got to be so over the top fruity whatever to mask whatever poison they're putting in there, or it will just taste like the poison. But there's not a lot of chemical flavor at all. It's just kind of empty. It tastes like an energy drink used to be here, but it ran away. And then it kind of leaves a fruity taste on the tongue and roof of the mouth. Is it sugar or fake? Yeah, this is a 10-calorie drink. So the list, if you're just joining us, the list is all no or low calorie drinks. And I'll put the list up on screen here for people who need it. We have 114 drinks on the list. Just not a great drink. I don't know. There's just nothing there. There's kind of not a lot to it. And then the aftertaste kicks in and you're like, oh, there's a little something there. It tastes a little weird. It's not bad. I don't know. It's not bad. There's just nothing to it to make me want to drink another one. Do we not have the Rain White Gummy Bear on the list? Chrononaut points out that we maybe don't. Rainbow Sherbet. An Orange Dreamsicle Tropical Storm. Yeah, I guess we don't have the White Gummy Bear. I thought we did. Okay, I've seen that locally. I'll grab a can of it one of these days. I don't know. We're swimming in drinks right now. So, trying not to go and buy more. Though I did buy a fruit punch the other day, and it was nice. It was nice to drink the best of the best again after months and months of just drinking whatever swill shows up in the mail. It reminds me a little bit of but not okay. So it reminds me of a drink I really like, and that drink is Hyphy. I don't know if they still make Hyphy, the energy drink. But it was a grape apple flavored drink. And it was very light and refreshing. I guess they have multiple flavors now. They do a pineapple and some other stuff. Yeah, okay, yeah, they still you can just go buy Hyphy. They got a website full of it. Oh no, sold out. Grapple is sold out. What about Purple Rush? Sold out. Pineapple Pop? Sold out. Berry Blast? Sold out. Damn. They still have looks like there's some places in Vallejo that have it. Hercules, drive out to Pinole. But I mean, I guess it makes sense that a drink called Hyphy is really only available in the Bay Area. Yeah, a number of locations. This is all over Fairfield and Oakland. If you are in Oakland, you can go to Abe's Liquor on International or Arwa One Stop Market on Bancroft, and you can get some Hyphy. But maybe Hyphy is not available outside the Bay because their website is not. Their website certainly doesn't seem to be selling it anymore. Oh, but they got hoodies. Oh, the hoodie is sold out. Damn it. Oh, well. Yes, perhaps Dr. E40 could find one for us. Maybe he would probably know. Okay, let's get this on the list so we can move on and talk about some video games here. This drink. So yeah, it reminds me a little bit of the grape apple grapple hyphy, but worse. So I don't think it's as good as the Country Time Lemonade. We had that pretty recently. It's probably in the PewDiePie range. It's probably somewhere in this spot here. Not as good as Rockstar X-Durance Blue Raz. It's probably better than Bang Delish Strawberry Kiss. Better than Ghost Warhead Sour Watermelon. Not as good. Yeah, okay. I got it. I was looking to see if this has any kind of fancy name. Most of these drinks have very long names, but I guess this one is sort of an exception here. And there we have it, our new number 80, Spike. Congratulations to the people at Spike. It's inoffensive, which is sometimes all you can ask for in an energy drink, I guess. I don't know. I closed my podcast notes. Let's get those back up. I have been playing some video games. And we'll talk about video games next week. No, we'll talk about some video games this week as well. Lego 2K Drive came out and kind of came out of nowhere, if you ask me. For as much as there seemed like people were pretty interested in it when it first was announced, Lego 2K Drive came out last Friday or last week, depending on which version you buy. It was one of those like 3 days early scenarios. And to me, it feels like something that is kind of sneaking out the door. I haven't seen a lot of talk about it leading up to its release. I just really hadn't seen much about this game at all. It just kind of popped out. And it's a Mario Kart style driving game, in that when you are racing, you have power-ups and things of that nature. But it does have kind of an open world thing going on too, where when you're out of a race, you can just kind of drive around, and there'll be some other events like, hey, collect as many of these things in this area as you can before time expires, and little kind of one-off things like that. It is not one big contiguous open world. You're kind of teleporting between different environments. And you have multiple vehicles. You equip vehicles like a loadout. Instead of just choosing a car and driving in the car, you equip a full loadout. And what that means is you have a street racing car, you have an off-road vehicle, and you have a boat. Because if you basically, by default, if you drive off-road, your Lego vehicle transforms into your off-road vehicle and then back into your street vehicle. And then if you end up in the water, it transforms into a boat. Some of those transformations are really underwhelming, in meaning they feel less like transformations and more like your car disappeared and an ATV appeared instead. And then, the minute you kind of edge off the side of the street onto the side of the road, it's like, bop, now you're an ATV. And then you get back on track and bop, now you're a car again. And it's a really weird, it's kind of a weird sort of thing that, because your car is always kind of changing. Because, I drive off road when I go around turns and stuff, ever so slightly. I'm not like going nuts or anything, but sometimes you take a turn wide and you end off track for a second, and then in that second, that's long enough for you to transform into the ATV and back again, and it's just kind of weird. It's got a weird vibe to it. I don't know. A lot of the cutscenes are stuttery in a kind of stop motion sort of way, like as opposed to the full frame rate of the game. They just kind of they chunk up the cutscenes to make it look like a stop motion kind of deal. And you can build your own vehicles, and when you build them, you can kind of and the more blocks you use, the more weight you are adding to your vehicle. So the cars will have a weight class as well as they have some stats of their own. And in an interesting twist, though I guess not that interesting, but like this seems like a good way to handle it. When you make your own vehicle, if you want to use that vehicle online, you have to submit it for approval. And they have a moderation team that will take a look at it and go, that's a dick. You can't use that one. I tried to make one that was vaguely penile in nature, and I failed miserably at it. I was not in the right zone for making a really detailed. The building tools seem mostly fine. I just for whatever reason couldn't make it happen. I submitted it, but I don't know if it got approved or not because I uninstalled the game. So my problem with the game is the driving is just very very standard, very bland, and just did absolutely nothing for me. And so it's there's aspects of that game that you kind of see little bits and pieces of it and you're like, okay, yeah, when the open world does this and that, but just the writing, it's not written for me. So that's fine. It's trying to be a kid's game. But just, I don't think it felt very good at all. But I think furthermore, the thing that really soured me on it is that they have monetized this thing. It's launching with a season pass, a year-long thing, and it's going to have it's got a full year of content updates. You can also purchase the premium currency and then convert the premium currency into the currency that you can grind out. And then with that currency, you can buy things like Lego pieces. And when you buy those Lego pieces, you can use them in your own creations, basically. There are also Lego figures that you buy with that currency, and full-blown cars if you don't feel like building your own. It's just it launched with such an aggressive shop, I guess, is my issue with it, for something that is a kid's game, and it just sort of feels bad. And the other part of that is that they are selling a version of the game that is $120, and that's going to come with all of the, hey, this comes with the season pass, and this comes with this and that, the whatever unlockable stuff. But there's a version of this game that's $120, and that's nuts. It's not a free game. It's not a free to play game, but their cars you are unlocking come with stats on them. And so when you buy vehicles, you are potentially buying, hopefully ones with good stats, I would hope. I don't know. And the lack of stuff in the open world, the kind of, the way the open world is kind of sectioned off into different areas and everything else. I was hoping to just have like a really good open world driving game, something that could kind of sit next to a Forza Horizon and be like, hey, this is a less serious take on that. And we've got power-ups, and we've got crazy drifts, and we've got all this other stuff. But it just, that aspect of the game feels very undercooked. The online multiplayer feels very focused on you racing. And, with it being an open world game, I think the hope for me was that, you would see something that was a little more activity-like in nature on top of the racing, to be like, okay, what if we all got together and similar to the kind of co-op challenges in like a Burnout Paradise or something. It's like, we're going to jump off this ramp over and over again for 3 minutes, and whoever gets the best jump wins, or, whatever. Like little stuff like that, I think would have been better. But as far as I can tell, it's just kind of here's races, here's more races, and here's some more races. And in this race, there are UFOs that you need to dodge or whatever else, and so I found the action in it very underwhelming. Like it looks nice, like the Legos look like Legos. You build the cars, you can build your own cars. Monetizing the building of cars by locking some pieces away behind this and that, I think, is a little unfortunate. The launching with 3 different versions of the game, ranging in price from regular price to double the regular price. It's pretty nuts. And so it just, I don't know, that game's got bad vibes coming out of it, which is not the most pinned down, like, direct commentary possible, but that everything about that game feel bad. Like, you just, as you're playing it, you're like, this seems like maybe they could have had some form of restraint on this ever so slightly on the monetization. If they had just maybe wait 6 months to roll some of that out when no one's paying attention. I don't know. That's actually not better, but yeah, Lego 2K Drive really not doing it for me. And it's a shame. I think there's really room for a good, Disney Speedstorm just came out, and I think that's a better video game. It's a more fun feeling video game, but as a free to play game, it is maybe worse in plenty of other ways. So it's kind of like neither option is ideal when we're looking for these kind of Mario Kart like alternatives, or alternatives to Mario Kart, which, if you're not on the Switch, is something to be nice to have, I guess. But both of these games feel kind of screwed up from a money perspective, in a way that makes it very hard to recommend. And again, I think Disney Speedstorm is the better video game. If we're just going pure gameplay, pure feel in the races, power-ups, visuals, music, whatever, like in race, like I think that's just a better experience than Lego 2K Drive. But obviously Disney Speedstorm has plenty of weird monetization issues of its own. I mean, that is a straight up loot box game. That is a game that straight up has like, open this box 300 times and you'll get everything. Here are the percentages of you getting different things out of this loot box. This one's 2.3%. Like, fucking great. I opened the box and I got an item that doesn't even work with my character, so it's completely worthless. Thanks. So anyway, I guess in conclusion, get Mario Kart, but not the mobile game, apparently, because Nintendo is getting sued by some players because some kids opened too many Nintendo loot pipes or whatever. Like, are they really? Is it Spotlight pipes? Is what I was reading. This was not something I was going to talk about in the news. But a kid is suing Nintendo for because of all the pipes, selling them pipes, pipe slanging. So I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. Get a Switch and you should check out Mario Kart on it. This is maybe the only time I will ever recommend Mario Kart to anyone, because Jesus. Of course, the Street Fighter 6 open beta was over the weekend. I got a little bit of that in. Not as much as I would have liked, but it's coming out very soon, so I'm not too worried about that. I got some more time in with Luke. It's great. That dude's good. I'll be curious to be able to take the full roster online and see. I really want to see how Honda plays. I've not seen or played as Honda anywhere, obviously. kind of mess around with the rest of that roster and see what's up. Good question here from Ready Set Victory in the chat. Oh, no, I'm sorry, from Mindbull in the chat. Would you let Luke babysit the kids? Absolutely not. Not under any circumstances. No. I just want to have a little fun. No, thank you, Luke. But yeah, cool of them to, cool that they ran that kind of one last time here before the game comes out. I'm going to be curious to see what people think of that whole thing when it comes out and how well it does and all the story mode stuff and just all the other little things that are in that game. And we'll, I don't know. We'll be talking about that game in the past tense, or in the present tense, I guess, pretty soon here. And then I have spent a little bit more time with the. I'm like I've said, I'm in this weird pit right now where I've been playing games that I can't really talk about for a little bit here. And I have been spending the overwhelming majority of my time on stuff like that. But I did also fit in some of The Legend of Zelda. Have you heard of this? Nintendo Switch. It's like a big phone with game controllers on the side. And they got this game where you run around and you build stuff out of wood. That's like, I don't know. Yeah, it's like they made it's like a Minecraft. It's like a Minecraft meets Fortnite, except you got a sword instead of a gun. It's like you got a sword and a bow and arrow. So it's like old timey Fortnite, I guess. I don't know. I've been enjoying my time with that game, but I have not been getting anywhere in it, I guess, is the thing. I've just been kind of wandering around and finding shrines and finding gigantic holes in the ground and running around there and finding nothing. I've been having a relatively good time doing it, all told, but yeah, I don't know. I really like the shrines. I really like putting stuff together. I saw a video on TikTok that is, some guy going, all right, today we're going to show you how to get auto build early and how you can do this and you're going to jump through here and do this. And it's like a very... The tutorial video voice, for as much as we talk about, YouTube guy voice and all of the other stuff, there's something about when that gets filtered through to TikTok and they're trying to talk fast because the videos are short. There's something about the way that stuff plays on that platform that just somehow seems even more soulless or something. I don't know. It's like a really I'm having trouble describing it, but it's just you're like, what if I told you could do this? Or it's not even like there was a while there that everyone on TikTok was playing off of the like, what if I told you that Link's got that dog in him? But no one's making that video anymore because it's all just like And because I'm watching a bunch of Zelda videos now, everything on TikTok is another Zelda video. And it's a lot of people, and you realize very quickly that like the overwhelming majority of Zelda content on TikTok, or basically video game content on TikTok, is people stealing shit from somewhere else and reposting it. Like, it's not people, like, there are people that are making clips of their own content or making, like, short versions of, like, hey, here's this tutorial, and, and whatever else. But increasingly, it's just like, here's this video that you saw on Twitter and everywhere else. I grabbed it and threw it on TikTok, and now it's blowing up. And giving, like, no credit down the chain or anything. Like, rarely, occasionally you see, but there's stuff that's just like, there was some account. And TikTok does this. I feel like I'm perpetually trapped in some kind of TikTok A/B test where every third update or so, it changes from showing a user's display name to showing their actual account name. And it changes back and forth constantly in a way that is bizarre. And so you'll see things that are just like daily Call of Duty videos. And then like, that's the account. That's what they do. They go and they farm the internet for clips of people playing Call of Duty. And it's just like, here's people shooting a team full of people in DMZ mode over and over again. That's all it is. That's all these videos ever are anymore. And you watch them and go, yeah, that guy smoked 4 people. That's great. Anyway. And the Zelda videos are getting to be that too, where it's just like, here's another death trap that someone in Japan made that we've stolen and reposted here. And I think that, you know, like when people post stuff to Twitter and that's not theirs, I think it kind of, usually they'll say something, not all the time, but there are plenty of accounts that are just jacking shit all the time anyway. But like, it's just, there's something about the way it resonates, the way it plays on TikTok feels way worse. But long story short, I saw a video of some dude on TikTok that was just like, hey, did you know you can get the auto build stuff like 2 hours into the game? Or like basically as soon as you get the glider, you can go get it. And I was like, fuck, I want that. I want to build a thing and I want to fly around. And then I never want, you know, like I want to build a bunch of cool shit and then deploy it when I need it. And so it's like, okay, go south of town, and then there's a tower there. Take over that tower, which is easier said than done at the very beginning of the game when you only have 4 fucking hearts. When you're like, okay, all right, let's go fucking kill all these dudes. So you go do that, you take the fucking tower, and then you launch out of it, and then you got to go even further south. There's a hole in the ground. You dive into that hole, and then there's enough stuff down there for you to build a car. You build the car, you drive the car over the gunk, you get all over all the gunk. And then at the other end of that, there's a fucking robot man, and you talk to the robot man, and he'll let you be able to auto build stuff. You're like, okay. All right. Seems easier, you know, seems easy enough. I have not done it yet. But I bookmarked that video. And then the video is also like, by the way, there's a boss fight down here. See ya. And you're like, fuck you. What the fuck, dick? But yeah, I don't know. I've got the fast travel point. I just need to go and do it. That game's really remarkable, and seeing so I'm kind of 2 minds about it. Where, you know, pre-release I was talking about like, oh man, I'm gonna really love seeing all the videos people make of people making stuff. But now I feel like it's a problem with TikTok, I think specifically, which didn't really exist in the same way when Breath of the Wild came out, or not that Breath of the Wild was really as video friendly as this even is, but I think the way that like I'm being bombarded with Zelda videos, and it's basically like 3 categories of just like, we crucified another Korok, here's a death trap, and here's a flying machine that goes all wrong. And then like a 4th category of like, we built the cool S. You're like, cool. Or look at this sick bridge, which is a very sick bridge. I as much as I was like, I'm going to love to watch videos of that game, I am super fucking burned out on video content about Tears of the Kingdom. Because it is those 4 things over and over again, you know? And the death traps are really cool. People are like, you know, hey, I built a fucking weird maze, and then there's a spinny fire thing in the middle, and here's a bad vehicle I built, and you drop that in the middle, and it kills all these guys super fast. Or here's a wheel, I put 19 swords on it, and then I deployed it in the middle of this cluster of enemies and watched it kill them all. And that stuff's neat, but there's so much of it. And it's been so much so fast because there's been such a land grab for like that corner of the internet or something, but there's just so much. that I'm pretty burned out on it. It started very simply. It was like, hey, okay, well, we're going to make a video of the minecart shield, and then we're going to put the song Superman under it. And then people will go like, haha, like Tony Hawk. And then they will click the like button, and then whatever, money, I assume money at the end of it, but probably not actually. And so there were like 30 different versions of that video. Now, and then it escalated as people got better with the tools and whatever else. I've gotten better with the tools. I've gotten a lot better rotating things and slamming shit together and building whatever it is I need to build. And yeah, I think that system is really impressive when you think about, I don't know, the size of the world, the scope of the world, the types of physicsy weirdness that, could be happening that generally doesn't. It's amazing that thing works as well as it does on the Switch, no less. And yeah, I don't know. I'm really impressed from like a technical perspective that they pulled all of that off. We can have the frame rate conversation all day long, and yeah, guess what? The frame rate is it's a noticeable thing at times for sure. Yes, exactly. And then if anything gets too weird, the game just throws a blood moon out there to wipe it all away, and is like, just forget you saw any of that shit. It's a really elegant, weird system to, kind of help fix stuff. But yeah, it's an endlessly impressive game. I just haven't had a ton of time to devote to it because like I said, I'm spending a lot of time on some stuff that we'll be talking about in the relatively near future in terms of new releases and such. And we'll talk more about that then. Why don't we get into some news? Huh? You want to get into some news? I got a button here. I can. Mortal Kombat 1, the first Mortal Kombat game, is coming out later this year. They are taking orders for multiple versions of that game that will come with, their Combat Pass, Season Pass, and all of that other stuff. And it would appear that, what is this? The Italian Amazon Italy has posted details on that Combat Pack 1 to go with Mortal Kombat 1. No, that's not one. That seems to list all of the playable characters and stuff that you will get with that version of the game. They are listing 6 playable characters and 5 cameo characters. The playable characters, Quan Chi, everyone's favorite Pepsi drinking wizard. Omni-Man. I'm going to type Omni-Man into the internet here and see what I get, because that sounds fake. Omni-Man is the father of Invincible and a member of what is in the Image Comics universe. What? Voiced by J.K. Simmons in the Invincible television series. Okay. He's got a mustache. It looks vaguely like Superman. He looks like J.K. Simmons. Like, good. Ermac. Everyone loves Ermac. Ermac, it does some good weird stuff. Peacemaker, Peacemaker is, I gotta look this up again. Peacemaker is that's John Cena, right? Yeah. Which we don't know if he will be, I don't know if they'll get John Cena's likeness or voice or anything like that, but the Peacemaker is in the game. Takeda. And Takeda is, Takeda was in 10, right? Yeah. Okay, yes. I just, the lore of Takeda, I've not committed to memory. But it is Kenshi's son. Remember good old blind Kenshi? And he's like a young, he studied under Scorpion and is the son of Kenshi. And Homelander is listed as the 6th. that's the fascist dude from The Boys, I guess. And then 5 cameo characters. Keep in mind, we don't really know what we don't really know how cameo characters will work in the game. They have kind of implied that it will work as an assist character sort of deal. But we haven't really seen gameplay. You know, they announced that they will be showing gameplay at Keeley's show on the 8th. So we'll see some gameplay there. But it seems like these will be characters that you're calling for an assist. And these are, I assume that means that these characters will only show up in a cameo capacity and will not be full playable characters in the game. The characters listed there are Tremor, which that's one of the other ninjas it's one of the other like fan canon ninja guys, right? Tremor was oh gosh. He was in MK Special Forces as a non-playable minor antagonist, according to breezewiki.com. Johnny Cage is listed as a cameo character. So if you think about it, this was something we were talking about when we were discussing the timeline for the new game and how that might work, where you've got like Johnny Cage is a movie star, so he kind of only exists in an era when movie cameras exist. And so if this is going to be set in ancient history and is the first tournament or whatever else, however else they intend to spin it, then what is Johnny Cage? And so I wonder if this means that Johnny Cage will just be a cameo character. I'm going to make an assumption here that any playable character can be used as a cameo character. I don't know that for sure, but that would make a lot of sense, but also that they would have characters that are only cameo characters. And so I wonder if this means that Johnny Cage will not be playable in a traditional sense. I'd have to go back and watch that trailer and make sure that he's not in it somewhere, but I don't think he is. And so, yeah, I wonder if this means, if that's how they'll do it, because it's a lot easier to have like non-canon characters show up as assist characters or something like that. As opposed to, you know, like having them be full-blown characters. We'll see. They haven't really... the timeline, I think, is also a little bit murky. They haven't necessarily said when the game takes place and whatever else. The press release. Let's see if we can find the press release. Because I don't think... Let's... Okay, yeah, so he is on the list here. NetherRealm's genre-defining story mode returns with an immersive cinematic narrative featuring unexpected twists on classic rivalries and original backstories for a wide-ranging cast of legendary fighters, including Liu Kang, Scorpion, Sub-Zero, Raiden, Kung Lao, Katana, Melina, Shang Tsung, Johnny Cage, and many others. Now, they have gone on since to say that Shang Tsung is a character you will get for pre-ordering the game. Maybe you'll be able to unlock them in the story mode. Sometimes they'll do that, where it's like you unlock them early, but you also unlock them through playing the story. And Johnny Cage being listed last makes me wonder, because this doesn't say playable characters. Original backstories for a wide-ranging cast, including... So, I don't know. Johnny Cage is on that list, but this isn't, you know, Okay, so maybe that means that playable characters do not show up as cameo characters on their own automatically, or maybe they're just referencing that Johnny Cage will appear in the game as a cameo character. We don't really know. I don't know that press release really confirms that one way or the other, per se, because the language they use is very ambiguous. Chameleon with a K will be a cameo character. Movado and Farah, who you may remember Farah and Tor. I assume Farah is the big guy, right? I don't actually remember. No, Farah's the small one. Okay. And Movado is another of that era of Mortal Kombat that no one remembers. Movado appears to be a dude. He was in Deadly Alliance. I'm looking at a picture of him right now, and that's not jogging my memory at all. He's a guy. Oh, he's a Red Dragon guy. So he's like a Kano. He's part of Kano's posse. All right. And also as part of that combat pack comes... oops, I accidentally closed the thing. A skin for Johnny Cage to make him look like... Well, a character skin for Johnny Cage to make him look like Jean-Claude Van Damme, which is a genius, brilliant throwback move. If you're going to make the game and call it Mortal Kombat 1, then they should reference the game's actual history and origins as a potential Jean-Claude Van Damme video game, and putting Jean-Claude Van Damme in the game in some capacity, I think, is actually pretty funny. So yeah, that's the leak out of Amazon Italy. Again, that's not announced, so we don't really know for sure. But they had to get it from somewhere, right? And the Peacemaker and Homelander stuff was floating around beforehand anyway, so it all kind of lines up. Yeah, they haven't really gone on to say too much more about the game. Other than, okay. Mortal Kombat 1 will also introduce cameo fighters, a unique roster of partner characters that can assist during matches, creating expanded gameplay possibilities for players. If you remember, I mean, this is not a unique concept for fighting games, right? But the cameo, the assist character stuff, that's stuff that they did in the towers in Mortal Kombat before, where you could equip. So it's like, oh, in this round, especially on the Vita, remember that Vita version where they just put a bunch of wild shit in it? Where you could be like, oh, I can push a button and then Sector just comes out and does his little teleport punch. And that's a fun little extra hit I can do to get combos going and whatever else. It makes for some good chaotic launcher crazy shit when done well. And in Mortal Kombat specifically, it's neat. It's been neat when they've done stuff like that. It has been in those kind of single player modes, generally speaking. It's never been something that's been part of the main game. But I'm guessing that that's what they're doing here. There's always, it's not impossible to envision a scenario where they, when you pick your assist character, you pick 3 different versions, like, hey, do you want Johnny Cage to come in and do a teleport kick? Do you want him to come in and do his little uppercut punch? Do you want him to do low fireball? Like pick what you want to do. They could do variations around the cameos if they wanted to. In a Marvel versus Capcom 2 sort of way. But it doesn't sound like it's a tag game or anything like that per se, right? So yeah, I don't know. That's interesting. I don't know. The cameo stuff, especially if they're going to introduce weird characters that might only be in there as cameo characters, it probably gets a lot easier for them to just throw in a billion different weird jokes, while still having like their kind of serious cast of playable characters. It allows them to just kind of play around in an almost like metaverse sort of way of just like, oh yeah, I mean, the main story, it might not make sense for Johnny Cage to be a playable character, but fuck it. We'll put him in here. Push this button, he comes out, he signs an autograph and flings it at him. And if it hits him, it pops him up in the air and you get to do a combo. You get a combo off that. Whatever it is. That sounds like it'd be fun. I'm very curious to see what that game looks like and plays like. For sure. Because if they're talking about a new fight system, all this other stuff, it's yeah, I don't know. Amico is in the news. The Intellivision Amico. Does this ring any bells? Does this do anything for you? I'll give you a second to try to remember this. They were going to make a video game console for families to enjoy. And they raised fund. Whatever. I'm not going to recap the entire history of the Intellivision Amico, but suffice to say, it's been a bumpy ride, and they still have not produced anything for anyone. For all of the pre-orders they took for all 12 of them, however many, 400 people that bought an Amico, or whatever. But also the people, the investment money they went out to try to raise, the top to bottom, it has been one of the most slow motion car crashes this industry has seen in the last, I don't know, 5 years, 10 years, whatever. They have issued another update via email. I guess this is I don't know who this went to, if this was people that signed up for a mailing list or if this is the people who pre-ordered or some combination of that. But it is headed with an Intellivision Amico news and updates graphic. And this is from the CEO of the company, Phil Adam. You remember Phil Adam stepped into the role when Tommy Tallarico stepped down. I'm going to read this whole thing because I am impressed with how long this email is and how little this email says. It is one of the most circular, empty. It's a piece of work for sure. The last 18 months since becoming the CEO has been an extremely difficult time for the Intellivision business. Already right off the bat, saying, since I became the CEO, it's been an extremely difficult time for the Intellivision business. It was a tough time before, but that's a bad way to word this. It's like, ever since I took the reins, it's been fucked. Like, dude, give yourself some credit. It was fucked before. All right. A long list of disappointments from both inside and outside of the company had to be taken head on. And during this time, we laid off a large portion of our staff, restructured our management team, and began the process of reevaluating every aspect of the business, which included the path that lay ahead for Intellivision. What we have distilled down from countless hours of self-assessment is that we are, or more accurately, wish to be, in the business of creating a living room experience that brings people of various ages together in group play. It is the experience between people sitting in the same room that will be our primary measure of success. This, first and foremost, comes from offering great content. As an entertainment business, do you follow this? Are you following this? As an entertainment business, we realize that creating great content requires world-class partners and a focus on strategies where we can effectively achieve the necessary level of excellence to succeed. To this end, we will be announcing a string of new partnerships that will not only help bring fun and innovative content that captures the Amico experience, but also bolsters and celebrates our content's appeal by 1. Licensing our IP to development partners who have product pedigrees that are creatively aligned and best poised to bring something great to market. 2. Leveraging our IP in ways that ensures delivery on Amico, but additionally expands our content to entirely new audiences Intellivision would otherwise be unable to reach. And 3. Acquiring new IP that embodies Amico and fits our strategic focus. This will include licensing IP for other platforms where it makes sense to do so. Our commitment to delivering a unique and innovative platform that brings people together has not wavered. What has changed is our philosophy on how to deliver that experience. The business environment is quite different from what it was in 2018 when the original Intellivision business plan was put together. We cannot solely be dependent on a traditional hardware console business model. The cost and time to scale such a business is too great. This is something that you knew years ago, or if you didn't. We must be more creative in how we deploy our intended entertainment experience, not only delivering a better experience for our customers, but also reducing the time and cost to scale the business. Okay, let me just take a break here. We want to assure our fans that shipping a console remains part of our product strategy. The development and hands-on testing of our pilot units have been a successful step forward. As a testament of this progress, we are pleased to share with you this video of a father and son playing Shark Shark on one of the pilot units in their home. I don't have the video in front of me, unfortunately. Shark Shark. As part of our expanded strategy, we also plan to bring the Amico experience to other hardware platforms, starting with mobile devices under the name Amico Home. Amico Home will dramatically reduce the hardware footprint needed to enjoy Amico games and provide more developers the opportunity to explore the creative potential of in-room multiplayer games with our innovative physical and smartphone controllers. The broadening of the talent pool will bring new ideas and gaming that will shape the future of Intellivision and our place in the market. Okay. So let's see. They're going to start bringing games to phones under the name Amico Home. You could have called the console Amico Home and brought or you could have just called it Amico, and I don't think anyone's going to get confused by that. I don't think it'd be like, well, we've got to differentiate the mobile versions from our console version. Like, no, you don't. No, you don't. So okay, so they're saying by putting our stuff on phones, we're going to provide more developers the opportunity to explore the creative potential of in-room multiplayer games. So let me get this straight. You are going to make, okay, your whole pitch, the entire pitch for the Amico was, and then they say it up front, and then reiterated that it is still the pitch to make in-room multiplayer, couch co-op, whatever it is, local multiplayer is the thing that they are going for. And to do this, they're going to put it out on mobile. Small screen, not something that people really, not something that's widely known for local multiplayer. Not to say it's not doable. You can certainly play phone games together in a room. You can, whether it's Bluetooth or you can just do it over the internet anyway. You can certainly do that, but it is not playing to the strengths of those platforms particularly well. You end up with a Jackbox sort of concept there, but again, Jackbox has the benefit of the thing that is connected to the television that everyone can see, and they are only using their phones as controllers, which that is the core of the entire Amico pitch is, hey, there's a thing happening on the TV, but also you have your own little screen, whether it's your phone or whether it's the Amico controller. Then, maybe that doesn't matter. Bryn asks, do you think this means they're probably going to replace the Amico stuff so that the console just ends up being an Android phone in a box with two cheap Android handsets for those controllers? That's already what it was. It was already that. I'm pretty sure the Amico hardware was very much not far off from just being some low-end Android shit, right? So this is just kind of, that was the pitch all along. It goes on. We are excited for this future and what it means for bringing the Amico experience to the public. Those who supported Intellivision early on helped set the foundation for all that we have been able to achieve. And we are truly thankful to you all. In the coming weeks, those that have maintained a deposit those who have maintained a deposit will be able to sign in and verify their spot on the priority list, the Amico Club list. The Amico Club list will be used as the primary mechanism to prioritize access to special products, early access to new games, and other unique offers. More details to follow. With your $40 love donation, you're securing a position on that rocket ship that we're going to blast off all the way to heaven. Get your food buckets now. So send in your love offering for this food bucket. We will send you this food bucket and this copy of Shark Shark. You will secure your spot on the club list. Tommy's special club list. And then it closes out. Again, we thank you for your patience and support as we chart a new course for Intellivision and establish our own unique position in the vast and vibrant video game industry. And again, that's from Phil Adam, who's the CEO of Intellivision. Now, this is not surprising, right? I think surprising is to actually hear at all from Intellivision at any point. Like the idea that they are still kicking is actually surprising, because they had gone quiet for so long. You're like, oh, maybe this thing's just done for good. But you know, for months, if not years before that, it very much felt like the path for them was going to be putting these games out on phones and maybe PC and maybe even console or Switch or whatever, just to try to get some money coming in, because they obviously didn't have the funds to go and manufacture and send out to retail to launch a console in any meaningful capacity. So really the only way for those games to get out to anyone ever, and some of them were damn close to complete, if not actually complete, from my understanding of it. So they were going to at some point have to find a way to get those games running on some other platform just so they could get out there and sell them and get some amount of money coming in that, you know, creditors will probably want at this point. Or some of the investors that signed, like that one investor that signed that super sweetheart deal where they get X number of dollars off the top of every Amico sold or something until they're paid back. Well, you don't have to pay them back if you're not selling consoles, right? Aha! Got him! So all of that, like, this is a really long-winded way of saying we're going to put our stuff out on phones, which everyone I think kind of assumed was eventually going to have to be the approach for them anyway. I think for me, the part where this breaks down conceptually is the idea that they're like, we're going to put our stuff out on phones and we're still committed to that same room multiplayer experience. Like, that's just, I don't feel like that's widely done. Jackbox was successful, but again, Jackbox has a centralized thing, whether it's running on a PC or whatever else. Like, there's still something on a television as a part of that process. So are they going to, like you need this to be as low friction as possible to succeed. And so if you're going to end up actually pitching like, okay, someone take a phone and then AirPlay it to the television so that everyone can see stuff, and then set that phone down. You're not going to play on that one. That's the house phone. That's the TV phone. Now everyone take their other phones and connect to the game. And now we're going to play Night Stalk, Shark, you know, whatever you got. Cornhole. I don't see that being a thing. That those are just not hoops that normal people are ever going to jump through. the idea of getting things hooked up to a phone or hooked up to a television. So the games then need to be built for like, okay, it's going to be multiplayer, but everyone's looking at their own phone and everyone's following the action there, which is slightly different from, so, you know, the games would probably have to be retooled to a certain degree to work that way, because they probably were not initially built to work that way. And I don't know. It's a very long-winded way of saying we're putting our stuff out on phones. And I think some of this stuff is really licensing our IP to development partners who have product pedigrees that are creatively aligned and best poised to bring something great to market. I mean, they already did that. That's something that all like developers like Other Ocean, you know, like worked on games, did games for the Amico in some varying degrees of completion. There's all those, like, weren't like 9 games made by one team in Germany or something wild like that. Like, there are games in various forms of development, and some of them I believe were actually finished. And so, like, are they really going to get out there and license the IP all over again? And who's going to want to? Because, again, it's the Intellivision IP that we're talking about. I don't want to, you know, like, if we get to the core of this, we're talking about Night Stalker and Shark and a bunch of stuff that has really kind of been lost to time and has not a ton of, I don't view that IP catalog as having a ton of value, I would say. So like the whole thing feels like, okay, you're licensing out all these hot Intellivision joints. Like, come on, what are you gonna make? Poker? You have the mustache? Are you licensing out the ability to put a dot in the middle of a zero? Is that part of the IP? And then to say like, oh, this we're acquiring new IP that embodies Amico and fits our strategic focus. Really? You're going to go out and raise more money so you can acquire new IP and then do nothing with it? Or then license it back out to people that will then make it into phone games? Like, why would anyone trust you as the middleman for this? Why would anyone need Intellivision to be the middleman on that? It's and realistically, are they going to be able to go out there and raise enough money and have enough money when they, you know, they spend a lot of this message talking about like, oh, we had to lay off all our staff, and of course we know that the office shut down and the people that leased them all the office furniture want their money back, and you know, all this, you know, they're not in a great spot. I don't think I'm being a fucking gaming racist over here to say that maybe the Amico fucking process has not been a smooth one. And so to say like, oh yeah, we're doing hot deals over here. Like, here's what we're going to do. We're going to shoot business guns until we're sitting on a gold mine. You know, like, it's not, it's the fucking Intellivision IP. Like, even in the best of times, what you had was the Intellivision IP. Like, what, I don't mean to be a dick to people who liked those games. But we're talking about, if we go back and look at the Blue Sky Rangers list of games, which I don't know if that's the full IP catalog that they control. And it's definitely not, because there's stuff like Dungeons and Dragons games and Tron games and other stuff like that obviously they don't control that stuff. But I'm saying, even, you know, even if you like the Intellivision catalog and like the Intellivision controller, which I think is a nightmare device. I just moved all my Intellivision stuff into my storage locker the other day. And so I was looking at all of it and just kind of like going, man. Let's see here. This following table lists all 125 cartridges released for the Intellivision. So what do we got here? Backgammon, Dungeons and Dragons, Treasure of Tarman, neither of which they own anymore, Armor Battle, Astro Smash, which, again, I don't want to levy anything at the quality of these games, per se, because I liked Astro Smash just fine. But if you're getting out there and saying like, well, we represent some of the most fantastic classic IPs in the business, like Astro Smash. Like, oh, okay, what is that? It's like a Space Invaders meets Asteroids, but not. It's like not as good as Space Invaders or Asteroids, but if you had an Intellivision, it was really good. Okay. Auto racing. B-17 Bomber, maybe the most iconic game in their entire catalog. Bomb Squad. Boxing. Bump and Jump, which is not theirs. Burger Time, which is not theirs. Buzz Bombers. Checkers. The Electric Company Math Fun, and the Electric Company Word Fun, neither of which they own. Frog Bog. Horse Racing. Jetsons Way with Words, which they don't own the Jetsons. Kool-Aid Man, which they do not own. Las Vegas Poker and Blackjack. Las Vegas Roulette. Lock and Chase, which they don't own. Locomotion, which is a Konami game. Major League Baseball, which was also released as Baseball. Masters of the Universe, The Power of He-Man. That's not something they own. Melody Blaster. Mind Strike. Mission X, which is a Data East game that they don't own. Motocross. Mr. Basic meets Bits and Bytes. NASL Soccer, also released as Soccer. Basketball. Football. Hockey. Night Stalker, which was a cool game. I played it when they ported it to the 2600. Bowling. Golf. Pinball. Reversey, which is Othello. Royal Dealer. Scooby-Doo's Maze Chase, which they don't own Scooby-Doo. Sea Battle, which I think is that just a bootleg Air Sea Battle? Is that what Sea Battle is? I guess I can click on it. Oh no, it's not. It's like a strategy game looking thing. Shark. Sharp Shot. Snafu. Space Armada. Space Battle. Space Hawk. Space Spartans. Star Strike. Sub Hunt. I'm going on a sub hunt. Tennis. Triple Action. Tron Deadly Discs. Tron Mazatron. Tron Solar Sailor. Obviously, they do not own the Tron IP. US Ski Team Skiing. USCF Chess. Utopia. Vectron. And World Series Major League Baseball. And then there's third-party stuff on this list also, but obviously, they don't own River Raid or Pitfall. They don't own Ladybug or Donkey Kong Jr. So that's not IP there. Star Wars: The Empire Strikes Back. I don't think the Intellivision company owns that. So if we assume that the Intellivision IP primarily comes from that list, there's not a lot there that you think of in a modern context. I think that you could look at there are games that are remembered out of the Intellivision library, like a Night Stalker and like Astro Smash and perhaps like Utopia, B-17 Bomber and some of this other stuff, but like I don't care. Like, you could market that with the full weight of the Intellivision name behind it. I don't think that there's a huge audience for those games that really cares. And so if you've reshaped those in ways that are going to be good modern games that you can play a local multiplayer thing, that's great. But it's not, but when you talk about this, the plan for Intellivision going forward is licensing our IP to development partners who have product pedigrees that are creatively aligned and best poised to bring something great to market. How do you get that stuff in front of people in a way that they're going to even notice it exists? and doesn't get lost in a sea of like all of the other mobile stuff that's out there. Launching it as a console platform, as a thing you buy and do, at least gives it like a, oh, okay, you hook this up to your TV. I guess that makes it real. But if you're just like, here's a phone thing, it's 99 cents, or it's, you know, it's probably not 99 cents, or however they end up selling it, that just seems like it gets hard fast. I mean, the mobile industry, you don't need me to sit here and tell you that, hey, the mobile business, pretty fucking cutthroat over there, huh? And so putting these games or putting new versions of these games out on phones does not seem like something that is, you know, it'll bring some money in. Some people will buy it. I will buy it out of a perverse curiosity to see what the fuck they've been doing for all these years. So that's one sale of every game you'll put out, guaranteed. I'll write it off. And then maybe eventually they try to bring this stuff to console or bring this stuff to PC, which then I think that kind of solves some of those issues where you're like, okay, now it's definitely hooked up to a television. And so we at least have that kind of shared single screen for this shared local multiplayer experience or whatever it is. So like it's just the idea that this is a pitch. Like I feel like anyone looking at this, especially if this is going to be something they're going to try to go out there and justify, hey, we need money to acquire new IP. Please throw more money into this burning trash can that we've got over here. Like anyone that does that at this point deserves it, man. Like, come on. Like they have had, I will grant you that they executed this plan at maybe the worst possible time to do it. And a lot of world factors, industry factors, whatever you want to call it, aligned against them, not through any fault of their own. But also the pitch was highly suspect, and everyone who took a look at the numbers on that stuff and what they were looking to charge for the games and what that would back into in terms of what the development cost could reasonably be in order to turn a profit or even break even. You just look at that stuff and go like, none of this makes any sense whatsoever. The numbers just don't work out the way that they are saying they're going to. And so I look at that and that's from a while ago now that those numbers didn't make any sense. So you look at what they're doing now and go like, okay, well, you know, what have they done that has earned anyone's trust? Like, why would you, if you were a developer, why would you go license Intellivision IP? Well, like again, unless you're just like sick in the, and you're just like, I've got a B-17 bomber concept in my head that I know is going to be a multi-million seller, but we needs the IP. We can't just call it Bombing Run or Plane Factory. You know, like if it doesn't say B-17 bomber on the box, I walk. You know, like that team probably doesn't exist. So I look at those things and go like, this is okay. Like you're laying this out as like, sure, this is a thing you would love to do, but who would want to do business with them at this point with what their track record is? And you know, like how much money do they owe creditors already? Like, if you are a developer and sign on to license this, like, are you ever going to get paid? Or are you paying them to license the IP and then paying them a per unit? Like what are they even trying to negotiate? If I walked in and said, I want to make Astro Smash for PlayStation 5, how much is it going to cost me to allow you to let me write the words Astro Smash on this JPEG that I'm uploading to the PlayStation back end? That can't. I have a very hard time believing that this is a business plan that will attract revenue or bring money their way in any meaningful, you know, if they get something shipped, then yeah, okay. Then they sell some number of copies of games and some money does come their way, obviously. Right. But they're like IP plans and some of the other stuff that they're talking about here, that just doesn't, nothing about that makes any sense to me. And again, I don't have access to the books, and even if I did, I probably wouldn't be able to fucking read them anyway. But nothing about this seems like we realize that creating great content requires world-class partners. It certainly does. Intellivision does not seem like a world-class partner. And it doesn't seem like they're holding enough cards to be like, well, they seem shifty, but how else are we going to realize our dream of calling a game Frog Ball? We want to make a checkers game, but we want to make it Intellivision checkers. We need to have the dot and the zero. If we don't have the dot and the zero, what game are we even making? It just seems like an empty house to me. Like they may own this IP, but like that, I don't think any of this IP is such a big deal. Like if you wanted to make a new Frog Bog, just make it and call it whatever. And say, oh, we were inspired by this, this old classic game. And then don't say the name out loud, because it just feels like that these guys are days away from going like, what if we moved on to litigation? What if we tried to make money through lawsuits? So they're doing what they can. I good on them for doing what they can. I don't know. I wonder what we'll see and when we'll see it, if they even get far enough to where they are launching mobile games. And if any of this stuff comes to pass, even if their plans to say, hey, we're going to put this stuff out on phones, if they even get that done, I don't know. Maybe. There's no reason to think that they wouldn't do that, except for every other thing the company has done. And you look at it and go like, oh, yeah, they'll never get it together to actually make that happen. But if they're not doing that, then they're shutting down, right? Because there's really zero money coming in. A lot of people in chat talking about Tommy Tallarico. Footage surfaced recently of me standing next to Tommy Tallarico at a Midway event in 1999, being interviewed for Electric Playground. And I was surprised. I was like, because people asked like not that long ago, they were like, hey, do you know Tommy Tallarico? And I'm like, no, I don't. I couldn't remember if I had ever actually had a conversation with him. It's like one of those things where like a lot of people are all in the same place. If you listen to Game Boys to Men, the podcast available over at patreon.com/Jeff Gerstmann, we had Dan Amrich on recently. And Dan wrote about games for decades. He started before I did, and worked at GamePro and everything else. And I was constantly in the same place as Dan, because we all got invited to the same 20 events every year and whatever else. But Dan and I had never really had a real conversation until we did that podcast. Because, you're there, you're working, you're just like, oh, hey, man, what's up? And then you're just off to doing whatever's next. And so Tommy Tallarico being, he since he did that television show with Victor Lucas, he would sometimes be at some of that stuff. And I'm sure that so there's video proof that Tommy interviewed me about winning an NFL Blitz tournament. Which is the context of what that video was, I guess. But that's not me trying to like burn Tommy Tallarico. I don't need to, it's just a case of like, I know I was in the same same place as that dude all the time, but I don't really remember he and I ever having a conversation, about much. It's not to say we didn't like have small talk or whatever. Like, yeah, and then this video surfaced. I'm like, oh, okay, I guess all right, I guess we have. And whatever. It's, yeah, I don't know, just such a bizarre situation. And to have it resurface after months of being dormant, like, oh, by the way, Intellivision is still kicking around. Like, oh boy. So we'll see what happens to them, what they end up pulling off, if they can even pull anything off, and who is still a part of it. I mean, obviously, the story, the what seems like happened is that there was a Tommy lost someone in his family, and around that time is no longer the CEO of the Intellivision thing. This Phil Adam guy comes in. Phil Adam has been around the business quite a bit and done some things. He's not just some guy out of nowhere. And then I haven't really seen much of Tommy Tallarico at all. I don't know if he's still doing concerts or whatever, but now that just the situation with the Intellivision stuff led to a lot of people finally going like, oh, by the way, I was a musician on this tour, and we were local musicians brought in for his video games symphony thing that he does or whatever it is. And they never paid us, or, hey, they barely paid us anything, and they did this and that, and they treated us like this. And that there was just a lot of like nasty stuff around that. Of course, there've been a lot of videos trying to pull apart because, he's a guy who has claimed to work on a lot of video games, work on music on a lot of video games over the years, which I always found very weird that someone who was working on video games was also reviewing them on television. I don't know if the rules are different in Canada or what, but that always seemed highly suspect to me. And now people are like finally pulling apart all of the stuff he says, where it's just like, some of it's just like on the surface, just like you look at it and go like, all right, man, that didn't happen. I was like, Mr. Miyamoto and I sat down and had a conversation about the Wii and did this. Like, all right, dude. Yeah. H-Bomber guy has a pretty exhaustive video on the subject, that gets into the idea of like the guy who you think maybe did the music on Earthworm Jim perhaps didn't, and all of this other stuff, all of the other, like the long list of games where you're just like, oh yeah, Tommy Tallarico did the music on this. You're like, no, Tommy Tallarico Productions did the music on this, but he had people working for him that was doing which is not unheard of. There are plenty of musicians for TV and film that are just like, oh, you got Hans Zimmer? It's like, no, we got Hans Zimmer. We got the Hans Zimmer Corporation, and the people under him maybe wrote most of these melodies and didn't get credited or whatever. Like I'm not out here talking shit about Hans Zimmer. It's just like that was the first name that came to mind. But there's plenty of people in the creative in that end of the business that I've heard of situations like that where people are kind of doing the work uncredited and whatever else. So that was the first thing I thought of when people were saying, oh, Tommy Tallarico, his company did the music, but that doesn't mean he did the music. I'm like, okay, yeah, I guess. All right. Yeah, we'll see. I will see what happens with that stuff. I don't know. I want them to put something out. I want to see what they've been working on all this time. Like that's the sick part about all this is it's like, yeah, put out what you've been doing. Let's see what it is. Let's be able to judge it on its own merits and not have to, not have to look at like pictures of office furniture that got repoed or whatever, like all that bullshit that like you just look at and go, oh boy, let's see what the games are. Let's let the rubber meet the road on that shit. Overwatch 2. This happened while we were doing the show last week, and I wasn't quite able to sit down and parse it all out. But they did a long video on the future of Overwatch 2. And as a part of that process, announced that they were no longer going to produce the hero missions that were the kind of the big single player or co-op PvE modes in that game. When they announced Overwatch 2, a lot of it was on the basis of like, okay, why are you replacing Overwatch 1 with a game called Overwatch 2? And they're like, what makes this Overwatch 2 instead of just another patch for Overwatch? And they're like, well, we're working on all the single player stuff. I'm like, great. All right, well, when's Overwatch 2 come out? Oh, the PvP stuff is launching, but the single player stuff, it's coming. It's coming. Last week, they canceled that. They canceled the hero missions. So, There's a long Kotaku article kind of breaking down the live stream about it, and they've pulled a few quotes here. Alyssa Mercante over there watched that whole thing. I started watching it, and I was like, oh man, I don't even want to watch this. So this is Aaron Keller, who's the director of Overwatch 2. Basically kind of saying like, yeah, we got all this awesome stuff in the works and blah, blah, blah. And they've got story missions that are still happening, and they'll have details in the coming weeks. But hero missions, which was, according to the quote, an in-development game mode that allowed players to upgrade individual heroes through talent trees, providing a deeply replayable version of PvE in Overwatch 2. That is dead. Story missions they're building as fast-paced co-op gameplay that are leaps and bounds above what we built for PvE previously. So there will still be some kind of PvE coming to the game in a more, I guess, permanent capacity. Because I know there was some, they've done some limited time modes that kind of did stuff like that, right? I can't remember for sure, but there's an interesting bit of perspective here from Aaron Keller as he kind of tries to walk people through why they're not doing this. Which, again, the rest of the Overwatch 2 pitch was, hey, we're changing the player count in game because we want to have the meta change. We want to make changes to the flows of these matches, and so we're changing the number of players per team in this team-based game mode. And hey, we're gonna have new characters. We're gonna do this and that. We're gonna all the same stuff that they had been doing for Overwatch 1. They were basically gonna keep on doing it, along with that change of just like, hey, what if we had fewer players per team? Which I don't necessarily like. I think people look at that as a bad thing. Like, I can't believe they made it fewer. Like, well, if it makes for a better game, I see why you would do it. Did it make for a better game? It doesn't sound like it did. I don't know that there's anyone, like, I don't hear a lot of specific chatter around the player count anymore, because I don't hear a lot of specific chatter about Overwatch anymore. And so I guess you could look at that as a failure on their part to retain players' interest. But also, Overwatch 1, people were not happy with that either. And so I think a lot of the people that are like, oh, Overwatch 2 broke Overwatch, I think are oversimplifying the part where, as Overwatch 1 kind of dredged on, players seemed like they were just completely losing interest in it, top to bottom, in its current state. So I think if they had like stayed the course and just been like, all right, we're going to add more shit to Overwatch, I don't think that would have been a winning strategy for them either. So making some moves on the multiplayer front and going like, hey, we're going to change the player count. We're going to do this. We're going to, like trying to make some moves to revitalize the game. I can't really blame them for it. It just doesn't sound like that was successful. Whether it's the right move for the game or not almost doesn't matter, because it was not successful at bringing players back to the game, bringing lapsed players back in a meaningful way. Because, clearly we would not be hearing stories like this if Overwatch 2's launch was successful at bringing players back, right? But the interesting part about one of the interesting parts about this is Aaron Keller, who's again the director of Overwatch 2, kind of framing all of this up in a way that kind of makes you remember the actual origins of Overwatch as that MMO that they canceled. And they're like, oh man, and the idea that there were long timers on that Project Titan team that always wanted to get back there. The Overwatch team, especially at its inception, considered itself an MMO development team. As we transitioned away from the original concept and started creating Overwatch, we included plans to one day return to that scope. We had a crawl, walk, run plan. Overwatch was the crawl, a dedicated version of PvE was the walk, and an MMO was the run. It was built into the DNA of the team early on, and some of us consider that final game a true realization of the original vision of Project Titan. And so he's kind of, I mean, so think about it. Like, imagine a world where you spent years making this MMO and you're like, fuck, we can't. We fucking can't. It's just not going to come together. This project is a disaster. We can salvage it into this shooter. We can still do this. If you had that larger scope in mind the whole time, you're always going to look at Overwatch as this piddly ass thing. Like, we shipped what we could. Fucking, yeah, people love it. Great. Fuck. If they would have really loved the thing, if we could gotten it together and done that, like, that's a bad mindset to be in when you're trying to run a live game, especially a live game that ended up being like pretty fucking popular, right? And so I think it's really interesting, and I think it's a really interesting kind of side effect of the creation of that product that they never got away from, and that there were still people on the team, even with all the turnover they have had, that there's still people on the team that are like, no, we've got to get back to the MMO. And newer people on the team are probably coming in and going like, what? Why aren't we? This season has nothing in it. There's like 2 maps. It's like, you're over here creating all this other bullshit that'll maybe come out 5 years later, and we don't even have a guarantee that people will like it. Why don't we take all those resources and put them on the part of the game that people already like today? And so that's what they're doing. And the Kotaku story goes on. According to Keller, the team kept trying to employ the crawl, walk, run plan, but the audacious and gargantuan, those are quotes, PvE mode was, quote, continuously pulling resources away from the live game. He confirms that there were years of dev work and emotional investment put into the hero missions mode, and the team tried to find ways to make all of our ambitions fit together in a plan that we believed in. We couldn't. And so they failed again, basically. I mean, not to be shitty about it, but like the Overwatch project, the Project Titan project was a failure. And it was one of the happiest failures in the history of games because of how big Overwatch was when it first came out. And that they were able to launch this new IP. They fumbled their way into an exciting new IP, an exciting new esports business, and all of this other stuff, but they kept taking some significant percentage of their budget and squirreling it away on this single player stuff, on this, like, what if we eventually get to this? And I think that's cool, because like that stuff out there is the stuff that I would probably be interested in playing, because the PvP Overwatch, I'm done with it. But also there are plenty of people, millions of people who are conceivably not done with it. And they should probably be making sure that they are keeping those people happy and keeping those people playing the game. And that's the part that probably led to Overwatch 2 and led to all this other stuff. They're like, hey, numbers are flagging. We got to do something. Okay, let's right the ship here. We'll get Overwatch 2 out. It'll be, we'll have some stuff that'll revitalize the live game, but also it'll help us, this will be the framework for the stuff we want to do with the single player, blah, 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 blah. And then you got turnover, and then you got everything else that has been happening at Activision Blizzard for the past few years in terms of company culture, in terms of abuse, in terms of, like, you got teams trying to unionize and trying to, get themselves in a better place with management. And you have Microsoft coming in and trying to acquire the thing, and everything else. All of these things that are going to probably in some capacity get in the way of producing the game that they thought they wanted to make. And so I don't know, like I can't blame them for holding on to that. It's very difficult to, if you created a thing and you know that thing can be something bigger and better, you just need time to be able to do this. You just need resources to be able to do it. It can be very hard to let that go. And so like I look at this and go like, yeah, I see how that could happen. I see exactly how that could happen. It's, I think people are framing this up as like, oh, that's an excuse and they did this. And like, yeah, sure. I mean, yeah, they did not execute. And I think that Overwatch is, I don't know. It's not my place to say, cause I don't really play it, but like when I judge by people's excitement around Overwatch and excitement around other team-based shooters, hero shooters, whatever, your Valorants, your, the other things that are out there, it's clear that there are still an audience of players that would play Overwatch if it was still good. But it really seems like whether it's because different aspects of the game have grown stagnant, or just, it's just not new enough, or they're focusing on the wrong things and whatever else, like, I guess, like, I look at it now as like, okay, like, Overwatch is a wounded animal. Overwatch doesn't seem like a thing that's in great shape. And this was all part of a larger announcement and roadmaps and, hey, here's what we're doing to Overwatch. So, like, part of the frame up for this is like, holy shit, we've got to get Overwatch back in shape. Because at one point that was doing real well, and like, we probably shouldn't fuck this thing up. Which is probably the right move, but you wonder if it's going to end up being too little too late. Like, I don't know. Like, is Overwatch a salvageable project? Is that an overly dire way of putting this situation? Because I look at it as like, hey man, this thing seems like it's headed in the wrong direction. Like, you made this announcement, and I understand, like, I look at this and go like that's probably the right move for the game. Like, it calls into question the whole reason for Overwatch 2's existence again, which, people are clowning on them on, I think rightfully so. But, as to why would you put out a thing and call it Overwatch 2? And you're like, well, whatever. It gave them a path to make that game free to play completely and do away with the $30 skin version, like all this other shit. The skin version. But, like, man, oh man. Attracting talent to that team now. That's a good Sigma Factor in chat says Overwatch is old and good luck getting new talent to work on a tail spinning project. Yeah. So, like, the only people how do you attract talent to the Overwatch team right now? And they would have to really be gigantic believers in Overwatch, gigantic fans of Overwatch to come in and go, I know I can fix this, right? You would have to be able to get them on board that way and be like, no, I know I can be a part of the team that saves this thing before it gets too far gone, or whatever it is. Lastly, people have wondered why this announcement came at this time. After Overwatch 2 had launched, we started refining our plans for future seasons. And then the Kotaku article goes on. The team realized they couldn't keep pulling focus towards the promised PvE mode as plans grew, so they decided to abandon hero missions altogether. This has been hard for us, but as the director on this project, I have to do my best to make decisions that put the game and the community first, even when those decisions are disappointing. In this case, I had trouble pivoting away from a vision that just wasn't working, and for that, I would like to apologize to our players and to our team. I'm sorry. We'll see. I don't know. Like, it's hard to envision a world where Overwatch puts it all back together and people care, because you have people that have fallen off of it, that have gone off and played another game. I was just about to say it, but M-Bowls beat me to it. Time for Overwatch 3. You need a big announcement, and that's probably part of why they decided to call the game Overwatch 2. They were just like, hey, we got to get people's eyes back on this thing, and calling it Overwatch 2 does that. For better or worse, it will get eyes back on the game. So yeah, it's a bad situation. I don't know. But like, an understandable one. I think you end up in those situations where you're really pushing for something that it's not, and accepting that can be hard at a management level for sure. And yeah, I don't know. Like, to me again, with I don't have any numbers in front of me or anything like that, but I know You hear stories about how the Overwatch League viewer numbers are just disappointing across the board, and just like it just seems like overall interest in Overwatch. I'm saying I see 0% positivity around Overwatch, as opposed to when it first launched, when that positivity was probably, I don't know, 80 or 90%. You don't hear, yeah, like you hear about people complaining about Overwatch, complaining about whether it's the roadmap, complaining about the changes they made to multiplayer and player count and whatever else, or hey, they're not putting out heroes fast enough, they're not adding content to the game fast enough. Like, those are all things that they can course correct on, especially if they're no longer devoting a ton of resources to a single player mode that they're not even sure that people want. But again, they've dug themselves a big hole now. And so, like, even the people that are still playing it, and again, people play games and complain about them all the time while putting hundreds of hours into them. But, who's left? That game had a big mainstream appeal. Think of all the amazing pornography that people were making. And it feels like they've driven, like that a lot of those players have been driven from the game. And I don't know that they will, I don't know that there's anything that could bring them back, is I guess what I would say there. All I'm saying is the time is right for Battleborn 2. Hear me out. This time, the mushroom guy fucks. No? All right. The AEW video game has a release date. This was rumored for the past week or so, but it has been confirmed by one Kenneth Omega that the game will be launching on June 29th. And the game is coming out on PlayStation 4 and 5, Xbox One, Xbox Series X and S, PC, and Switch. That's a full load of consoles right there. I am very interested in seeing what this thing is, as someone who is 1,000% disenfranchised with WWE's video games, and also someone who enjoys AEW's television show quite a bit. And their cast of characters. I am excited to see it and see what exactly it is. So yeah, big June for them. They got a new television show launching, and then the game out at the end of the month. And then what is it? Is it next weekend that they've got there? I had an opportunity to go and see this game that I was not able to take, and I am sad about it because I did want to go see it, but it is an extremely bad time for me. So, AEW is this weekend? Okay. So it's the Blood Money, and then also double. Is this Double or Nothing? No. Big weekend for wrestling. I wonder what kept this release date from getting announced sooner. Because this feels like one of the weirder run-ups to a game release I can think of in recent history. And part of it is because, it was partially made by actual wrestlers to some, like Kenny Omega is billed as a creative director, which I don't, again, what does that actually mean? Is that how much time did he really spend on it? I've heard that he did spend time on it. Aubrey Edwards, the referee, has a history with the Scribblenauts franchise and has worked on some of the mobile games. This is like an interesting, weird amount of video game talent on the AEW roster. And it seems like they made it backwards, where they're like, fuck it, let's make a video game, and then didn't have a publisher, didn't have any of this other stuff. And then obviously the roster stuff has gotten weird. And so I'm sure that led to some changes. Obviously the key art has changed to no longer have CM Punk on it. Part of me wondered, like, are they just waiting until they can get CM Punk back so they can put him on the cover, or what? What are we? Is that what we're waiting for? That almost seemed like they were building up towards that, and now who knows? Who fucking knows? I don't even want to go down that rabbit hole of talking about that scenario, but the people on the internet have opinions about what's happening behind the scenes in AEW, and every single one of them knows exactly what happened behind the scenes, and they're 100% sure that this is exactly what happened behind the scenes, and as a result, I hate this guy. Or I love this guy, and I hate these guys. And it's fucking ridiculous. It's fucking ridiculous. All of it. Even the stuff that, Anyway, they're launching a new television show. I'm excited about that because I'm around on a Saturday. I can watch 2 hours of wrestling on a Saturday. I'm down for that. And I don't know, everything else. It's a mess. All of the discussion around AEW right now, at least outside of what's airing on television for them, has just become this absolute mess. And my advice to people is to stop reading about wrestling on the internet. You'll have a better time with it. You just, I don't know, get on a Discord with some friends and talk about it there. And, maybe occasionally hear some of the behind the scenes stuff that way, secondhand, third hand. But I just want nice things for the Dark Order. That's all. Easy stuff, right? I want my Evil Uno action figure to go up in value. Thus, I want nice things for the Dark Order. Yeah, anyway, this game's out end of June. There was all sorts of, the achievement list leaked out because someone had scraped it off a profile. We talked about that pretty recently. I saw some folks saying that, it started preloading on Xbox, which is a good, fun, weird one to start suddenly happening before they'd even announced a date. But yeah, I recently would have had an opportunity to see the game and not able to make it, unfortunately. So I'm very much looking forward to seeing what this thing is because it's taken forever to come out, and I think that's going to work against it in a lot of ways. It's one of those situations where the game was announced and they have not shown a ton of it, and expectations are weird. And so I wonder what people will think of it. Even if it's a great game, I think there'll be some people that are just super down on AEW Fight Forever because of all of the weird timing and release dates and just the lack of information around it. They showed it off at Gamescom. They've had playable builds showing up here and there for a while now, but just with this real lack of there hasn't been the kind of the smooth roster reveal that you would have as part of a marketing push for a game. And that's led to people going well, wait, who's in it? Because now people have left the company and now people have done this and there's this and who's actually in this fucking video game? It's a great question. And weird that we're about a month out from release and that's not a firmly answered question. So there's just some aspect of the, and I'm sure I bet it's a situation because the people at THQ Nordic have been around the block when it comes to video games. In some cases, when it comes to marketing wrestling video games, even. And so I have to imagine this is a situation where the AEW side of things, or the game development side of things, whether it's AEW or it's Ukes or whatever, but something that is not a part of the publisher process has been funky to a point where you probably have people on the THQ side that are just hey, if we're really putting this game out into June, there's 9 different things we could be putting out trailer wise or roster wise, or do these players have stats? We could do a stats review. I mean, we look at what they're doing across the street. Look at what they're doing up north. Look what the boys in New York are doing with their big roster reveal with the numbers and everything. They don't have to do anything like that. They shouldn't do anything like that for their first year product, but like there's more they should have done by now marketing wise for this video game that they have not done. And I look at that as like that almost has to be coming from either the developer side or the licensee side, because again, THQ Nordic, say what you will about the quality of some of the games they've been putting out lately, they know how to put a game out, and there are people there who have done this with wrestling games before and know what it would fucking take to actually properly market the launch of a wrestling game. And that kind of hasn't been happening. So I look at it as like, you know, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to look at this and go like, this is a mess. Much like everything else you hear about AEW lately, it seems like kind of a mess, which is a shame. Like I said, I think they've been doing some really fun television. Last news story. Jim Ryan says it's too early to judge PlayStation VR2's popularity, according to Tom Ivan at Video Games Chronicle, who saw this in Famitsu. Jim Ryan did an interview with Famitsu covering a number of different topics. This one, I think, is an interesting... All right, look. Okay, so let's see here. There's quotes here that they've translated, because obviously Famitsu is in Japanese. PSVR 2 has just been launched, so it may be a little early to judge its popularity, but we are happy to see many positive reactions from users and the media. And he says that over 40 games were released around the launch and that many more were coming in 2023 and beyond. And then there's one more quote here. We will continue to push forward so that those who purchase PSVR 2 can enjoy it for a long time, and we can also secure profits. Again, this is translated, so I wouldn't take the specific verbiage to task here. Look. Is it too early to judge PlayStation VR 2's popularity? Sure. But if it was popular, they would be touting numbers. They would be talking about what an amazing launch they had. If it was doing great, they would tell you it is doing great. If they are saying it is too early to judge, that doesn't mean it won't go on to sell more. They get the right package, they lower the price, they put out some more games. Like, maybe people will suddenly decide that VR is a thing they want again, whatever you got. You would not be getting quotes like, it's too early to judge. You know what I mean? So, you combine this with that Bloomberg story about the launch projections and some of those numbers and everything else. I look at it from just a pure online chatter perspective. It felt like there was about a 10-day period where people were talking about PlayStation VR 2. And that was it. And it was specifically around the launch coverage. People seemed to watch the videos, the stuff that I produced around the launch of the PSVR 2. As I said back then, I think it's a pretty good headset. But it being on a closed platform like that is kind of frustrating. It sounds like that the people that are trying to hack it to work on a PC have made progress, but unfortunately the technology they're using would require you to probably have a highly specific video card with the right kind of USB-C port on the back. It's not just any USB-C port. It's some kind of video carrying USB-C. I forget the name of it. It's some kind of standard. It's some kind of standard that no one is using anymore also. So that may be a big barrier for getting PlayStation VR 2 headsets to work on a PC. But maybe someday, if you happen to have that specific era of video card with that specific port on it, maybe you could do it. Yeah, great for Gran Turismo. Great for Gran Turismo, PlayStation VR 2. I don't even like Gran Turismo when I played Gran Turismo in VR, and I was like, this is fucking amazing. But yeah, obviously just this month, the PlayStation VR2 finally started appearing at retail. It was only available directly from PlayStation and up until that point, which I don't really know what to make of that either. From just a conceptual perspective, why would you do that instead of, could they just not make enough, or did they want all the profits off this thing because they knew the demand was low and they wanted to squeeze every dollar? I don't even know. Sigma Factor points out, yes, the last mainstream GPU that had that specific USB-C port on it is the 2080. So we're talking 2 generations back. I'm not going to rehash the entire discussion about VR all over again, but it just doesn't seem like that people want it. It seems like the people that want it and people that do want that are going like, hey, this is a good one of those, and I'm having a really good time with this, and some of the games are definitely high quality, but that's not enough to get people to spend that amount of money for it. The videogameschronicle.com article ends with a quote from an analyst by the name of Francisco Geronimo, who told Bloomberg, "I suspect a price cut on the PSVR 2 will be needed to avoid a complete disaster of their new product." Which is harsh, but I don't really know what to make of this whole situation. Like I said, the headset really feels like it came and went. There are obviously more games in the works. But the crux of it is if PlayStation VR 2 was selling well, they would tell you that. He would not give a quote that says it's too early to judge. That means it's not flying off shelves. Easy. Have I used it since the launch day stream? Asks Fame Douglas 420. Yeah, once or twice. Yeah, I have hooked it up and done a couple of little things with it. And I'm like, oh yeah. But that's it. And that's it for the news. Unless there's anything huge and breaking, I don't know. They're going to show Alone in the Dark this week. Sony obviously is doing its thing tomorrow. So we are just about 24 hours away from them having a series of announcements. And we'll see what kind of presence the PSVR 2 has at that event, right? I mean, that would be the time for them to make some new announcements for first party things, because I don't know that they have a lot of first party stuff in development. Or I don't know, announced. I mean, I don't know if they have a lot of first party VR stuff currently announced. But also maybe they show Cosmic Smash and some of the other stuff that's announced and not quite out yet, if they focus on that, because it's out relatively soon. I don't know. I think it would be a real slap in the face for them to announce a price cut on PSVR 2 right now, this soon after launch. But at the same time, this is like this kind of feels like the 3DS ambassador certificate sort of situation. This feels like hey, we fucking fucked up and we got to make a cut here early. We got to find a way to make that not sting for the people that were our earliest supporters. And so I want a virtual reality ambassador certificate that I can put on the headset and I can see, and it's everywhere around me. My PlayStation VR 2 ambassador certificate. I would love, man. And then put WarioWare on the headset. What? No. So yeah, they're gonna Sony will announce a bunch of stuff tomorrow. Presumably we'll see something like a Spider-Man 2. There was another little news hit out there saying like, hey, it's not a co-op game. I know some people were thinking that, but no, it's a single player experience. Like, okay, yeah, good. Fine. That could be cool co-op, I guess, but I don't need that. I need a good, well-written Spider-Man game. I need a tight Spider-Man game. That's what Miles Morales did that the first Spider-Man didn't do. I need something that has just the tiniest bit of restraint and quality control on that end of the game to be like, hey, let's not just like pepper the open world with a bunch of dumb shit. Let's pepper it with a smaller amount of good shit. Fantastic. So smart. Everyone's talking about Konami about this thing, and Sony's gonna have all these Konami announcements and all this other stuff. Like, yeah, maybe. Fucking, I don't know. I don't care. I super don't. Unless it's, especially the idea of just like, oh, we're getting an MGS3 remake. It's like, great, the worst one. Congratulations, nice work. So I don't know. We'll see. There will obviously be some third party stuff there, in some capacity. But we'll see what we get out of this. I wonder, if we'll see any Call of Duty stuff, whether at the Sony thing or, which would be weird considering everything else that's going on, but or if they will ever kind of confirm, like, here's what the next step for Call of Duty is, because it seems like everyone pulled back on the, hey, they're going to take a year off. Like, it seems like that plan maybe went out the window based on what everyone's been saying lately, is like, oh, no, they're going to do a beta on this date and it's shipping here and it's this and here's who's developing. Like, there's just a lot of more firm details out there about what sounds like an actual packaged product, which is a shame, because it'd be nice if they just had wider, better support for, like, gave a game 2 years instead of 1. Yeah, well, we see Dragon's Dogma 2 there. That'd be great. What's the sort of stuff, like, Square usually shows up at these things in some capacity. Is this our last shot at a Final Fantasy trailer before release? Maybe we end up with something like that there, or maybe that shows up at Keeley's thing. I don't know. I don't know. That stuff's, I'm not really interested in, like, here's the last trailer before a game launches. I'm like, what do we got that's, like, new? What do we got that's that we haven't heard of before? That's why it's kind of weird that, I don't know, maybe they just didn't think it was a big enough platform, but, like, the way that Mortal Kombat just got announced is super strange to me. Considering they also just said, hey, we're going to be debuting gameplay at Keeley's thing. That's close. That's the 8th. So why put out an announcement that's relatively info free? I mean, unless maybe they just wanted to open up pre-orders. They're like, hey, we need to get pre-orders up and running, in mid-May to hit the number we want to hit, or whatever it is. And so, yeah, I don't know. That seems like a really strange now. That could have been a bigger deal if it had been like a boom, here it is, whatever. Who knows? Yeah, maybe it was going to show the Sony thing, and then when that fell apart, they said, fuck it, we'll just announce it. And then, or maybe they were going to have trailer show up at the Sony thing, and then gameplay at Keeley's thing, and maybe something fucked up there. So they just went, all right, well, whatever. We'll just put the trailer out on our own. I don't know. That's a weird one. But yeah, I don't know. What are we going to see at this thing? What if it's GTA 6? Sure, man. It could, anything's possible, right? I mean, yeah, what if Grand Theft Auto 6 was there in some capacity? It could happen. Sony could show that. Sony would probably be the right company to show that. But I think it's relatively unlikely that happens. But, yeah, it could. I think it's very easy to get caught up in the first party end of things. So I would think of things like, the Last of Us multiplayer thing. That seems like it would be a pretty safe thing to show there, right? What's Sucker Punch doing? Yeah, that would be a good one. Does Sony own Blue Point? Yeah, they do. So, Blue Point's project could potentially be there, which, I don't know. Deviation project from the Treyarch is canceled. Okay, yeah, because I know the Deviation, was it Deviation Games? Is that the name of that studio? I know they just went under. They just had some layoffs, right? Yeah, would IO Interactive show up with the James Bond thing? Maybe that's too early. I don't know, but a lot of people want to try to say that Bloodborne is happening in some capacity, and I think if that was going to happen, it would have happened by now. But yeah, I don't know. When is Armored Core out? August, right? No, I'm sorry. What? July 10th, 1997. Like, oh, yeah, okay. August, September. Yeah. So that's out relatively soon. So, if that was a game that you had to have From Software kind of be a part of the announcement, if you were doing Bloodborne, even if they weren't doing the work, would that be too soon to the release of Armored Core for them to feel comfortable about it? Maybe. But I don't. Again, Bloodborne is like far and away my favorite one of those. So it's not me trying to like hand wave it away as like not being important or whatever. I just feel like if that was a game they were going to bring to PC in any meaningful way, or PlayStation 5/PC, it just seems like something that would have happened by now. And also, I don't think that's what Blue Point's doing. What else? I mean, would we see like an announcement of a live game here? Because like Sony is working on like fucking 30 of them or whatever it is, 12 of them they want to have launched. Like, do we get a big long Destiny segment here now that they own that? Do we get a M Bowles in the chat says Blue Point has talked about their next thing being original. How well, I mean, if original meaning not a remake, right? Anyway, Destiny season just started, so maybe you get kind of a Destiny trailer saying like, "Hey, here's this." And I know they're doing some kind of like PlayStation themed armor things, right? Like there was just like, "Hey, you can get Titan armor that looks like a Kratos." Or whatever. Some people are saying new trailer for Lies of P. Sure. Fucking I will happily watch trailers for Lies of P all day long. Like, give me as many as you got. I will play Lies of P. I am sick in the head. I look at that game and go, yeah. But that's, yeah, is that an Xbox game? Yeah. All right. I don't know. Sony has just gone through such a weird transition. Like it's not even fun to throw out. Like it's a bummer now to throw out all of the kind of like dumb old PlayStation IPs that you're just like, oh, what if they did? Oh, no, it's like it's not fun to say Jumping Flash is going to be there. Like it just hurts. It just hurts now. When you say things like Ape Escape is back and it's better than ever, you're like, fuck. What if it was? That'd be great. What if they made a new Ape Escape? What if they made a great new Ape Escape? What if Namco showed up with a new Ridge Racer? What if they had games that felt like the original run of PlayStation games? What if they said, "Hey, here's a new Wipeout"? What if they said, "Fuck it, here's G Police"? What if Jim Ryan literally walked out on stage and said, "Fuck it, here's G Police," and then they crash zoomed in on him? And then they fucking faded to black, and then they had a new G Police. Colony Wars or something, you know? Where's Crazy Ivan 2? Do a Ridge Racer VR game. That would make people sick. like there's just so many things from that era that like it's just not, that's just not what Sony is. It's sort of like when we talk about Sega and it's very easy to get bummed out. You know what I mean? Because Sega is not the company it used to be, right? And it's interesting because they're finding their way back to like doing something with some of those dormant IPs now. And that's interesting that they're maybe finding ways to bridge that gap that don't result in them always funding those games where they're just like, you want to make a new Cosmic Smash in VR? Cool, we don't. But yeah, totally. We'll take a cut of the money on that. Absolutely. Go with God. Fucking make it. I think that's great that they're doing that. That's the stuff that you always wanted like Nintendo to do, where they're just like, what if Nintendo just said, fuck it, we're not going to make a new Kid Icarus, but like, I don't know, the Shovel Knight team said they want to make a new Kid Icarus. Like, fuck it, let them. Or whatever, Like, hey, the Hollow Knight team says they want to make a new Metroid game, a new 2D Metroid. Yeah, they should do that. Whatever, they just made their own 2D Metroid game that was really good, so whatever. Yeah, instead we got Fantavision 2 or whatever, 2000 to 20XX. What do they end up calling that thing? That new Fantavision is a bummer, but only because it's a reminder that Fantavision was never actually that good. Yeah, I don't know. I'm excited to see the Sony thing tomorrow. We'll be talking over it. We'll be here doing a thing. Let's watch it together if you want. Come hang out. We'll check it out as a family. I don't know. Yeah, new Intelligent Cube VR. I mean, just go play Humanity though. Just go play Humanity. It's great. Why don't we take a few emails here before we go? podcast@guard.bike is the email address. Send in your emails to me and I will find some of them. I will read all of them and we'll talk about them. Jeff in Boise writes in and says, I've been a fan of Mortal Kombat since I was a kid playing it at a friend's house and arcades. I agree with you that the story and characters of the games are getting increasingly better and are what keeps bringing me back, but I've also always enjoyed the sheer goofiness of the series, albeit due to limitations in technology, like guys with 8 rib cages and so on and so forth. Now with the trailer for the 12th Mortal Kombat game, Mortal Kombat 1, out in the wild, I'm starting to wonder if the incredibly realistic gore is going to put me off the series. I'm not a horror guy. I've never been into movie gore. And while Mortal Kombat X was disturbingly graphic in some cases, 11 seemed to walk it back enough to still seem cartoonish and fun. Mortal Kombat 1, however, looks like they're straying back into the uncomfortable, realistic look again, granted based on one cinematic trailer and 0 gameplay. Curious about your thoughts having seen the trailer. I just hope that they go back to dropping arcade machines on people and making Jax crush people after growing to the size of a building. I can find it as funny as it's always been without feeling a little bit ill, as seeing entrails, crushed brain matter, and eyes literally gouged out with fingernails. I get why people I get why people have this reaction. Because of the way the bodies come apart. Because of the way they rip those bodies apart. Even in cases where you've got like over the top realistic things happening, like unrealistic things happening, like, hey, these dragons ripped the guy in half. The guy is still getting ripped in half in ways that are like gross. And I don't know, from what it sounds like, what it's always been conveyed to me as, and I don't know this for sure because it's not like I talk to everyone involved, but when people come up with fatalities and the people that are rendering that stuff, like they're doing it because they really enjoy that work. And they're always looking for these gruesome, they're not always, but they're doing this. They're rendering these gruesome insides. And if you watch all of the fatalities in the past couple of games, you see that a lot of that stuff gets reused, where they're just like, well, we've found ways to rip the body apart. We know what's inside these bodies. And now when the fatalities happen, we know that, this is what's inside the human bodies. So That stuff just kind of comes with the territory, whether you're like, let's shoot a guy with a gun a dozen times, or let's rip him in half this way. Let's rip him in half this way. That all just kind of comes with the territory because they kind of do the work on the insides, you know, and it applies across the board. Yeah, I don't know. It doesn't, it's not something I am also not a horror person, and I'm not especially interested in gore either. It's never been something that's been that I really care about all that much. I don't, like I said, I don't really like horror movies at all. So I have found their over the top gruesomeness to be a different type of comedy, I guess is what I would say. I do agree that there should be, whether it's, you know, it doesn't necessarily have to be built into the game, like by default, but I do always think that there should have been something, you know, in Mortal Kombat 2, when you knock someone into the dead pool and you hold down on the joysticks and it makes the noise, a little bonus extra thing. There should almost be something where, like, if you're doing a fatality and you hold down on the, you know, hold a different direction or whatever it is, that's the 20 ribcage mode. Like, you do the fatality and hold down at the end, and then instead it's fucking oops, all ribcages. Or like have weird modifiers like that are not necessarily something you set in an options screen. You could do it that way. But a version where it's like, okay, we're going to do this fatality, and then I hold this, and then, yeah, fucking delicious cakes pop out of people when they blow up. Or whatever. Or yes, 1,000 rib cages or whatever else. I think that would be a fun, because the 20 rib cages that they used to have and everything there being the like weird kind of limitation for their sprites and whatever else. Like, it's funny, but it's probably something that they viewed as like, well, we had to do that because of the limitation, and doing it on purpose now is weird. So I look at it as like, hey, what if you, yeah, like it's a way to honor some of those roots while also honoring the roots of weird fatality modifier and some of the, you know, pit fatality. Like, oh, if you hold these down, he falls off the spikes. I think that would be fun. I don't know. I just thought of that just now. I think that'd be a pretty good idea. But, yeah, I don't know. Like, some people said, like, yeah, what if there was a slider that made it less realistic or whatever? Like, I guess, yeah, I wouldn't have a problem with that. I don't think I would use that. I don't think, because, you know, at the end of the day, there's still a body getting ripped in half, whether it's realistic entrails or not. At that point is kind of water under the bridge or whatever. In terms of like, am I going to do that with a child in the room? Which I played some Mortal Kombat 11 with my daughter in the room. She was very young, though. It was okay. Now I wouldn't do that. Now she sees what's going on and she knows. She's like, what the? But yeah, I don't know. It's I don't know if it's like a thing on the team where they're just like, let's exploit this technology to the fullest, and what can we do now with this level of hardware power and whatever else. You know, they're putting the game out on Switch, but they're not putting it out on old consoles. And much like with the past few games, NetherRealm was just doing the current gen versions. I don't think they're doing the Switch version, and then like QLoke is doing the PC version. Which, I don't know, that last the MK11 on PC seemed fine. It launched weird with some frame rate stuff, but they got there. Let's see. What do we got here? Jeremy asks, what are your thoughts on the upcoming Final Fantasy 16? This one seems to have the most buzz and anticipation surrounding it in a long time, but I haven't heard you speak much about it. Have any games in the series grabbed you, and does 16 look interesting to you at all? I know people just published like their last run of previews or whatever, like they let people play it recently. I honestly don't know that much about it. I haven't really been following it. I was surprised to hear people say like, hey, it's basically an action game. And it's, because it's like from one of the makers of Devil May Cry or whatever. I'm like, oh, weird. Okay. I don't know. Looking at the trailers, looking at some of the other stuff on it, I'll give it a look for sure. I don't know if it just seems like it's just an action game, but like it also doesn't seem like it's a weird. I enjoyed Stranger of Paradise. I always mean to go back and play more of that because that seems like a fucking insane video game. Just conceptually, and I don't know that I necessarily need a mainline Final Fantasy game to be an action game per se. And also, I think everyone today talking about Game of Thrones in relation to Final Fantasy 16 makes me significantly less interested in it, I'll say. When they're just like, it's like they watched Game of Thrones. I'm like, I don't want to. If I wanted to watch Game of Thrones, I would have watched Game of Thrones. Instead, I saw 1 or 2 episodes and I was like, I don't fucking care about this bullshit. Fuck this. So the idea that they're taking a lot of inspiration from that for this, I'm like, no thanks. Not interested. But I'm sure I'll give it a look. We'll see. Carson from Baltimore says, I feel like all the buzz around video game movies might be a bit overblown by these companies and expect some bombs coming in. They made a movie for Mario and Sonic, 2 of the most recognizable franchises in the world, then turn around like, oh shit, let's do this with anything. I'm not sure a Persona movie or a Kirby movie would do even close to how well a Sonic or Mario movie did. Then they'll just get disappointed and then we won't see any more video game movies. You're right. You're 1,000% right. Yeah, like this is leading to like a land rush where people are just like, let's make more video game movies. But like there are very few franchises out there that are anywhere close to the size of Sonic or Mario, right? What do we got? Shark the movie. There you go. Night Stalker. Frog Bog. No, but like, okay. I don't even think like, okay. Would Legend of Zelda be a good fit here? Yes. Does the Legend of Zelda franchise necessarily hit as mainstream and as across age groups as Mario does? I don't think so. It could, but I don't think that's guaranteed. And so even in that situation, you're like, okay, what else is there? Like there's a second tier below your Sonic and Mario, but I don't know if there's anything else that's on that tier. Like Halo is not. I think you could make a Halo movie. I mean, whatever, they made a TV show instead, but like, it's not the same as I think Sonic and Mario are it's a easy character to understand. It's a character that has been with us for decades and crosses generations. And so it hits multiple age groups. It's a kid-friendly thing. Whereas something like a Halo is not. I might even argue again that The Legend of Zelda is less kid-friendly than Mario is. I don't think that's too fucking controversial to say. And so what do you have? Like anything you do is going to be lesser than Sonic and Mario, I think. So like Kirby, yeah, you could make a Kirby movie, but like that, do you put that out in theaters or does that just like a direct-to-video? Is that like a fucking... I don't know, Amazon Prime brings you this Kirby film, like, or whatever it is. Funimation debuting the Starfy anime, Urban Champion, the series from the makers of Legend of Success Joe. Yeah, like, could you make a Persona movie? Absolutely. Would it ever be in any scenario? Is there ever a world where a Persona film does numbers the way Sonic did, let alone Mario? No, of course not. Could you make a Fortnite movie? Fortnite movie. Sure. I don't think Fortnite is not multi-generational the way that a Sonic or Mario is. That's parents taking kids to a thing begrudgingly and going, fucking all right. How well did the Angry Birds movie do? I feel like Fortnite would somehow end up in that same boat. Minecraft movie, yeah, Netflix did that Minecraft stuff that was apparently well received. You could do that. But I don't think the IP lends itself particularly well to that sort of stuff. And yeah, you end up with the kind of more adult kind of 90s and later stuff like a Doom, Mortal Kombat, obviously. I think that last Mortal Kombat film was nicely successful, just creatively. More so than the films from the 90s were. But obviously that movie's never going to do numbers the way Mario did. No one's expecting that. So I think there's probably ways to rein in those expectations, and not everyone's going to go into this thing. This is going to be the next Mario. No one, only idiots would do that. I think that it would be exciting. Okay, so like obviously Mario, they're going to make another Mario movie, but also they should make a Luigi's Mansion movie and do that on a streaming service. Or fuck it, bring it to theaters and see how it does. I don't know, but like do a Luigi's Mansion movie, do a Wario movie that's like a Despicable Me kind of thing or whatever. Like do a fucking. I'm just gonna keep saying do a Wario movie over and over again. Do a Wario movie, and do that direct to like as a streaming thing. That doesn't have to go to theaters, but you could do it the same way they're like, oh fuck it, we did like 9 Pokemon movies and some of them, some of them went here, some of them went there, right? But yeah, I think that Street Fighter is another great example of just like, here's an IP that has been with us for decades and you could obviously do something with it. But like, again, it's never going to be as big as Sonic or Street Fighter were. Let's see. Let's make this the last one here. Jeff from New York writes in and says, in retrospect of the shooter genre as it struggles to find a new way forward, do you think you could ever revisit Kane and Lynch Dead Men with a critical eye as a contrast to Uncharted or the Marvel Cinematic Universe? I have the extreme opinion of thinking it's the best shooter of that limited window because it admitted shooting people in the face sucks and didn't turn it into a snarky, cocky bullshit, hand me a victory experience. I guess I just like unfun games. Sorry. So, Kane and Lynch was a squad-based shooter in a lot of ways, The major problems with Kane and Lynch Dead Men, the first Kane and Lynch game, are not about the shooting per se. It's not a world-class shooter, but it wasn't really trying to be that. It was trying to be a squad-based game. The big problem with Kane and Lynch is that it was the crime-themed follow-up to Freedom Fighters, the game that originated a lot of the systems that went on to try to be updated in various ways for Kane and Lynch. And the way that Kane and Lynch updated those systems, and it's been a long time since I've played it, so, forgive me for not citing extreme examples of this stuff. It is a significantly worse game than Freedom Fighters. Just from a squad mechanics sort of way, the way you control it, Freedom Fighters is an amazing video game, but clunky. And so you would hope that Kane and Lynch being the follow-up to it, they would refine those mechanics in meaningful ways. And instead, it feels like a step back in a lot of ways. Now you add on top of that, oh, you're kind of going for a Heat type of thing here with your criminal, banter and heist crews and whatever else. And that they pulled that off in some of the most unimaginative ways possible. One of the biggest problems outside of gameplay for Kane and Lynch is the writing. the dialogue, and the characters. It's one of those games that feels like it was written by someone who learned English by watching crime movies, and that they just filled the, it's one of those things that you watch and just go like, people don't curse like that. Like people don't talk like when people curse, but like they're not like that. There's like nothing in here that rings true. It feels like the fakest, phoniest thing in the world. And a lot of that writing, whether it's the scenario itself or just like the line by line dialogue out of those characters, is so tone deaf, just so off. Yeah, Crime Boss Rockay City is not entirely dissimilar. But Kane & Lynch is a mess narratively. Like the just dialogue wise, like narratively, whatever. They do the thing, they do the crime, the story moves along, I guess. But like, it is just kind of characters yelling curses at each other, inserted into sentences in very awkward ways, in ways that just don't ring true. And so you've got this highly specific reference that you're trying to go for, whether it's, Reservoir Dogs, Heat, like the kind of American crime cinema of the 90s, 2000s, whatever you got. And then Kane & Lynch is there from a distance looking sort of like that. But the minute you approach it, the minute you take one or two steps closer to the game and try to engage with it, you're like, oh, this is not, this is so far off book. Like you have fucked up the whatever reference point you had for what you wanted these characters to try to act like or be like. You are so fucking far away from that this whole thing is just like an exercise in futility. And it just sucks. Like that aspect of the game, more than any other, makes playing through that game extremely unpleasant. And it was one of those things that you kind of have to you have to make people understand. Because people are like, oh, what, you don't like cursing? Like, no, stupid. You fucking idiot. God damn. There's a right way to do it. There's a right way to write believable dialogue, right? And they didn't do that in any way, shape, or form. And so the situations that these characters find themselves in just all feel phony on top of all that, it just and so that veneer permeates every single other aspect of the game. So you're going through this stuff and going like, well, I got to recruit these guys and shoot these guys and I got to guide these guys over here. And the whole time you're like, fuck, man, Freedom Fighters did this all so much better and came out 2 years before or whatever. And so it was bad on its own, but then when taken in context with the larger kind of where shooters were at, which is what New York Jeff here is getting at, it's even further off of the mark, because you had examples of other people trying to do that style of squad shooter. In fact, this team doing that style of squad shooter 10 times better with Freedom Fighters. Freedom Fighters felt innovative and fresh and fun, and ordering the squads around and moving your characters around and taking on these challenges felt fresh and new at a time when shooters needed that. And so then you look at Kane & Lynch and you're like, okay, now you're going to take these awesome mechanics you came up with, you're going to hone them, and you're going to put it in something that very closely resembles something like Heat, one of the most amazing films of its decade, over any goddamn decade, a masterpiece of fucking crime cinema. And they fucked it all up, front to back. It's disappointing more than anything else, it's not a game that's just dramatically terrible. You're not gonna be like, oh, this is broken. Or there are aspects of it that are funky. They had some ideas with the multiplayer mode where they're like, oh, you're gonna turn on the guy or not turn on the guy. I think they tried to patent that multiplayer mode because of how proud they were of it. But they missed the mark top to bottom. It was funny running into someone on that team at GDC the following year after it came out. and we were talking, and he said, "Oh, you know, I told the story before, but he said, oh, you know, yeah, that review, yeah, the game's not, yeah, you're right on. In fact, you're maybe a little generous." And I was like, "Oh, you should call up my old boss and tell him that." And then he and I took some photos, and then he posted the photos online somewhere on his blog or whatever it was of us, just like, you know, thumbs up, whatever. And then like 2 days later, the pictures were fucking gone. Like someone got to him and said like, "What the fuck are you doing?" It was fucking hilarious. Kane and Lynch 2, by comparison, in some ways a little less ambitious, right? Because it is a lot closer to the Gears of War template cover shooter kind of up close combat type stuff. But they do better with the dialogue and the overall scenario. And then also they shoot that whole thing like it was shot on the most busted digital cameras in the world. And so the visual effects and the tone and the style and the look of that game is unlike anything else. Like it's hard to look at in a way that's like kind of amazing. And Kane and Lynch 2 is another game. Like I went back and tried to play it pretty recently, and it doesn't emulate well. And there is a PC version of it, but I don't remember how well that runs on modern machines. It's miserable in a different way, in a way that actually works. And I think they're kind of like busted digital effects and everything that they went for in that game gives it such a unique look that is so of its time. And I actually think, you know, that game, like gameplay wise, it's pretty standard. It's whatever, you know, it's like a decent shooter for its era, for the Xbox 360, for like, again, for that kind of like Gears era shooter. You know, it's not necessarily like rewriting the book or whatever, but I think all of that stuff around it makes that game kind of incredible. And so it's this like weirdly stunning turnaround where you're like, holy shit, man, this game's fucking cool as hell. It's fucked. Like it just looks fucked. Like it looks dirty. They found a way to make it look like the most busted cell phone video in the world. Like live leak the video game. And that's really neat. And then whatever. And then they went on and reinvented Hitman, and now they're like one of the fucking most incredible and reliable developers in the goddamn business. Like IO Interactive is fucking amazing, right? So like just a weird a weird decade or so for everyone. 15 years, whatever, I guess, not even a decade. So yeah, I don't know. I don't think that I think if you think that Kane and Lynch 1 is one of the best shooters of that window, then you should just go play Freedom Fighters because it's a better game. It's like it's a more successful execution on those concepts. So I would probably go take a look at that. You probably have, but you know what I mean. Anyway, that's going to do it for us here at the program. I hope you have a fantastic rest of your week, but also, hey, we'll be back. You know, we'll do some stuff on Wednesday. We'll do some stuff on Friday. I'm not really sure. I know there's a few games out this week that maybe we'll take a look at, but you know, we'll figure something out. Maybe we'll play some old stuff for a change. You know, we kind of gotta get ready for some Street Fighter 6. Maybe get loose with something else. I don't even know. I'll take a look at what's out. Again, I feel like I should have like at least 1 or 2 games in mind. But again, you know, I've been playing some stuff that's not out for a little bit here, and so I'm kind of in this weird future past mindset. Whatever else, I'm gonna probably write some reviews or something throw those up on the Patreon. It's patreon.com/Jeff Gerstmann. Head over there, you get an ad-free version of the podcast. You get access to the Jeff Gerstmann Hall of Fame, Game Boys to Men, and more. We've been doing this for about a year now. It's fucking crazy. See you next week. Bye. I need to stop the recording. Like I froze up. I'm like, okay, now what do I hit?